We just found this new study from the FDA that you should not be on this for over 12 weeks at a time. I was on it for 4.5 years. This is all based on their testimony, some footage from his Ring camera, but I just completely blacked out. Decided to leave, got in my vehicle and started driving home. At some point I pull over, got my pistol out of my car and just started wildly shooting it into the air and shot up my own car. Put a couple rounds into traffic. Fortunately, no one was injured. What happened is the medication caused this incident. I'd gone through all the procedures to be on this, and it was helping. It was addressing some of the problems. It was not a criminal action. I didn't intend to do that.
Welcome to Mic Drop, the podcast where relevancy is irrelevant and we don't give a shit about your feelings. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome my next guest to the podcast. He spent 12 years in the United States Marine Corps, half of which in the infantry and the other half in MARSOC as a raider. He's the CEO of EBS Defense Consulting Company. He's the founder of Project Vetworx, and he's currently embroiled in a legal battle with misprescribed VA meds, which ultimately led to a World Star of Hip Hop event. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Michael Bloch.
Thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't mean to make light of your situation. On the same token, you got to keep a sense of humor, right? So
you have to.
What's the last full book that you read?
Last full book, hard copy, because I do a lot of Audible, but the last hard copy book was Call Sign Chaos.
Okay.
It's General Mattis's book.
What do you think of him?
I look up to him as a leader of Marines. I was in 1st MARDIV. He was our commanding general, and that is the General Mattis that I remember. Obviously, he was our Secretary of Defense. I served under him as a intelligence contractor for JSOC. And so the policies and way that he did business directly affected us, obviously. You can't get too in the weeds when things happen the way that they did. I think, if we hold someone's feet to the fire for every decision they make, you take away all the good things and the positive things that they contributed.
Well, I think you see that with police, not to get too far off in the weeds, but in that same vein, like you'll ultimately force inaction on everything if people just get hammered for every fucking thing they do. But I have mixed feelings. I served under him in Iraq. We were attached to the 1st Marine Division when he was there. But great memories of him there, kind of mixed feelings as a Sec Def. I mean, that's a whole other fucking show. But what's your favorite childhood memory?
I do not have just one memory that stands out. Rather, a collective of memories from kind of like my early adolescence. When I was 15, I got sent out to a youth ranch.
Where at?
Wyoming. So it was right outside of Cody, Wyoming.
Was it like a wilderness therapy kind of thing?
Kind of. It was, definitely for boys, troubled boys, I guess. I was sent there just for a summer to pull me out of my environment. I was getting into trouble with girls, and I grew up in a pretty strict Catholic family, and I was the oldest of 7, so my parents had to make some hard decisions, move me out of the home to prevent me from taking the rest with me. I got there, and it was a culture shock, kind of like boot camp, but I immediately hit a stride and just started falling in love with it, and ended up staying there, finishing high school.
Really?
Oh yeah.
As far as the camp or I guess the environment, was it like sleeping outside or was it in cabins or what?
Both. So we had a kind of down in the high desert base camp kind of thing. It was full ranch farm, several thousand head of cattle, about 30 head of horses. plenty of different plots, farmland, growing alfalfa and whatnot to feed the animals. Then we had a sunlight, it was up in the Sunlight mountain range, but it was a mountain pasture kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
So during the summer months, we'd move the cattle up there.
Oh, nice.
And it was, like 40-mile trek on horse, overnight. And then up in the mountains, we had a cabin, so we'd stay up there.
That's cool.
Shit, it was incredible.
It sounds like a great experience. What's something that you haven't tried that you want to?
Something that I have not tried.
You can't say anal because that's just.
No,
you can say it.
Yeah, well,
you said haven't tried.
The thing there is I would have to want it, right? Man, I think, okay. So during my time in the teams, I never got an opportunity to go to free fall. I've done a little bit, but I haven't finished getting my A license.
Yeah.
So I want to do that.
Yeah. Right on. What is your morning routine? And this is a normal day when you're in town, kind of in the routine, if you will, but also just like the first few hours.
Yeah, first few hours. So I've got 3 small girls, 5, 3, 1. My routine's in the first part of the morning is revolving around them, getting them up, getting them ready, out the door. Our 5-year-old just started kindergarten, so it's a little bit of a different change of environment. But
Sure.
As soon as I get home, kind of go through my own routine where I like to get outside, get some sun, grounding, get my shoes off right on the earth. I go through kind of a routine of beverages. So I start with coffee, and then I've been recently doing mud water.
Yeah.
And just trying to get more natural, substances and ingredients into my body.
Yeah.
Get away from a lot of the chemicals and trash.
Yeah.
And then I'll do some kind of meditative reflection, and then just dive into my day.
Yeah. Do you eat in the morning or no?
I just do a protein shake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, guys, I want to take a second to talk about ads. And this is not an ad. This is me talking about the ads. I know that, sometimes we get comments of people bitching about the ads. There's too many ads, or they're too long, or what have you. And I want to clear 2 things up, which is number one is that our team's ability to bring you guests and bring them in and the accommodations and the entire process that it takes to produce these shows to the level with which we do requires funding, and the sponsors give us an ability to bring these shows to you. So while I understand that everybody wants 0 ads and everything bunched together and what have you, this is how we bring this show to you. We're a very small team. We're very fortunate to be able to do it, but we do still have to pay bills and bring that to you. So keep that in mind. That's the first point. And the second point is that I can assure you with 100% accuracy is that there is not a sponsor or a product that I talk about on here that isn't something that I use. Okay, that I either regularly use or always use or have used, and I refuse to budge on that. Okay, so we get offers for sponsors regularly that get turned down because it's not stuff that I use or would use. So keep that in mind. Have a little bit of flexibility in terms of our ads, and realize that they're products that I believe in, that I stand behind, and they're what make this show possible. So if you support these advertisers, these sponsors, that is supporting the show. Thank you. What are the 2 key components for canine success? That's effective training and proper nutrition. Fueled by Team Dog brings those 2 components to your family and best friend. The perfect nutritional balance that results in a higher mental acuity, energy, overall vitality, and even an improved appearance. Every product you will find in my company's store was born from the battlefield and not from the boardroom. Let my life's work help you become your dog's hero. In terms of your childhood, we talked about the high school portion. Where did you grow up?
Kansas.
Lawrence,
Kansas.
That's where fucking Garmin's at, right?
I don't know.
I think Garmin GPS company is out of Lawrence.
Okay.
How would you characterize or describe your childhood?
It was the quintessential, American dream for a boy growing up. I had some really close friends that I grew up with, and we ended up joining the Marine Corps together. So we were outside all the time.
Yeah.
There was a lake nearby. We'd go camping, hiking, swimming in the lake, all those things. Mm-hmm. Get poison ivy, like all this, just the quintessential things that you think of, drinking from the fire hose.
From the fire hose or the garden hose?
Garden hose. Life is drinking from the fire hose.
That's no shit. Did you have siblings?
Yes. So I was the oldest of 7.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. Three brothers, 3 sisters.
Were your parents like fucking Mormon or what?
Catholic.
Oh, that's right. I guess you mentioned that. Man, 7 fucking kids. What's the breakdown, boy, girls?
3 boys, 3 girls.
Man.
Or four boys, so I'm the oldest.
I got you. You had three brothers, 3 sisters. Yeah.
Right.
Man, that's crazy shit. And you were the oldest. Did you play sports growing up?
I did. I played soccer, baseball, and basketball.
Yeah. Did you excel at any one of those things?
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, I did my best. I was on a select team for soccer growing up through the years, go to do tryouts or whatever. My freshman year of high school, I was on the JV team. For baseball, I was a pitcher, left-handed, so it was a little bit of a dynamic to throw at, right-handed batters. So I guess I did well. But it wasn't, I think, because of athletic ability, it was just different dynamic.
Yeah. Well, at what point in your high school tenure did you go to that camp?
15 years old. So it was basically right after my freshman year of high school.
Yeah. Was there a catalyst moment that your parents were like, that's it, you're going to fucking Wyoming?
No, it was just a culmination of a bunch of like sneaking out at night and just being a hellion.
Yeah. Once you went up there, though, so you stayed there and finished high school there, or
yes.
a high school nearby?
No, so they had a homeschool curriculum program.
Oh, okay.
So
wow, so you did like half normal high school and then finished there, huh?
Yes,
that's wild. At what point did you decide the military was for you, and was there a catalyst or a motivation to serve that kind of spoke to you?
It was 9/11.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah,
so that happened during that time.
So I had graduated high school a little early. So May of 2001, I was 17. That fall in August, I went back to Wyoming for college. And I was doing equestrian studies at Northwest College in Powell, Wyoming. And obviously that fall, 9/11 happened. I was still 17, so I couldn't just join right away. I had to finish out that year. And then by that point, I had enlisted with that, I think they called it delayed entry program at the time. I was waiting for a boat space to go to boot camp. Being out in Wyoming, there's just so many slots that get allotted. And everything that kept coming up was MOSs I didn't want. So I kept delaying and ultimately got my MOS for infantry.
Yeah.
Shipped out.
Were the Marines your choice for a specific reason?
Definitely. There's 2 friends that I grew up with. It was something that we talked about as boys. We all had like K-bars. And it was just something we looked up to.
I can dig it. You joined the Marines, going through boot camp and ultimately getting to infantry, especially kind of right after 9/11. What was the vibe like going through that? What did it seem different than what you expected, or how would you describe that?
It was a little different in that it was reality, right? Like, I had built up this idea in my mind about what the military would be like based on just movies that I'd been watching, a lot of old Vietnam flicks. And I had this idea that it would just be a certain way. And, nothing ever goes the way you imagine. There's similarities and some correlations, but ultimately it was very real and raw, and the vibe there was serious.
Yeah.
We knew what we were going forward to do.
Yeah.
And our cadre of instructors, drill instructors, our School of Infantry staff, everyone took it serious, and they put their heart and souls into what they did for us, training.
Was it? Did you expect one thing and get another, or was there anything that surprised you about going through
it? Actually, just how hard it was.
Really?
Oh yeah.
So you were expecting it to be easier?
Well, I wouldn't say easier, but
I just kicked your ass more.
It kicked my ass.
Yeah.
I was that recruit going to boot camp, barely doing 3 pull-ups.
Oh shit.
Oh yeah. I was a smoker. I'd been working on a ranch, where it's like brute strength can get you by. There's no endurance needed.
Yeah. That's a trip, man. No problems though. You graduated. And
yes.
Did all right. And where did you go first?
So I was assigned to 1-7, stationed out of 29 Palms. And when I got to the unit, there was a remain behind element because they were forward deployed to Iraq. They had just completed the invasion. And so the stop loss had just been lifted, and all of the Marines that, were due to EAS and had been held in country for the invasion had just gotten back. And, they'd haze the shit out of us.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Coming back war heroes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, so all right. So if you were in college when 9/11 happened, by the time you got to your first unit, it was post invasion of Iraq. So how long? I mean, did you finish that first year of college, or how long?
I did, and because I had the standard 12 credits, the Marine Corps had a program where if you have 15 college credits, they'll meritoriously promote you in boot camp.
Oh, I got you.
So I used that extra time while I was waiting for that boat space.
Yeah.
To just get a couple extra courses and
I got you. That's
have
smart. Is it E2 or E3?
It was E2.
Yeah, that's better than fucking E1, I guess, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so you go to 29 pounds, you're getting the shit hazed out of you. What's the worst hazing you ever got?
Worst hazing? Oh man.
How much time do we have?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just stick with then. I mean, it was rough.
I mean, like what in particular happened?
So we're in full combat gear, gas masks, just doing PT.
Yeah.
And then the seniors, they're all drinking, and so they started just going down this rabbit hole of the hazing involved indoctrination, where it's like, all right, we're going to make this somewhat beneficial to you. We're going to teach you about what you need to know going forward for Iraq.
Yeah.
So we were getting hazed while learning SOPs. They got carried away, and a lot of dudes ended up with black eyes. And there was a command investigation.
So it started off as being like getting smoked or beat or whatever, and then turned into where they're at like actually putting their hands on you a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me, there's of course a fine line. I caught shit in the comment section here recently from an old interview. I don't even remember which interview that they were commenting on, but they, the gist of it was like, believing that hazing is a valuable tool and applying it is what led to incidents like when there were a couple of SEALs killed a Green Beret in Africa and whatever. And I don't know the ins and outs or specifics of that story. It sounds like there was something else going on, some sort of like, we'll call it an extracurricular activity outside of the military that they were involved with, I think. And I would just disagree. I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I do think that it plays a role, but I want to caveat that with not unfettered and completely just, whatever the fuck goes. Like it's a tool, and just like a hammer can be used to build a house, or you can fucking kill somebody with it. Like it needs to be used appropriately, and that's an important distinction to make. Like if we've talked about hazing a few times on this show, and I am a proponent of it in certain situations, and if it's used, how it can be beneficial, and I think it can be. But I just wanted to throw that out. I'm curious what
absolutely. I totally think that there's a place for it when it's constructive. There's
and remedial.
Absolutely right, and that's where the fine line falls, right? Like that's a gray area.
Yeah.
There is something to learning something underneath physical duress.
Yeah.
It sticks with you
for sure.
Better.
Yeah.
So I think there's value.
Yeah. All right. So you're there getting hazed, learning the ropes. How long were you there before you ended up deploying with infantry?
So it was about 2.5 to 3 weeks.
Jesus.
Oh yeah. No,
so
it was
turn
quick.
and burn. Huh?
Yeah. We're getting issued our gear out in the sandbox, just training every single day.
What was going through your mind of, I mean, because boot camp in the Marine Corps is a little longer, and then you have infantry school. But I mean, ultimately, you'd been in the military less than a year at this point, right? Did that cross your mind of thinking like, dude, I know this is what I signed up for, but am I ready for this? Did you think about that at all?
No, I was too young and naive.
Yeah, just like, fucking let's do it.
Yeah. You know, there's definitely something to how the military kind of pulls you in and reframes your mindset.
Conditions.
Yeah, conditions.
Brainwashes.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely what it is. You know, yeah. I just felt invincible, and I was surrounded by everyone that had, you know, those same feelings, and it just, you know, it builds and you reinforce that.
Yeah, I think you need to be that way. Honestly, like I wouldn't want guys now going overseas that were unsure of themselves. Like I would rather have them be cocky, they're so confident, than unsure and maybe timid, you know?
Absolutely.
What was it like when you first went over? And did you go to Iraq first?
Yes.
Yeah. Where did you guys go?
So when we got there, we landed in, actually we bussed the whole way up from Kuwait to Babylon. And this was, you know, I think late May 2003. You know, so there was some small contact skirmishes happening on the roadways, but nothing crazy, you know?
Yeah.
And so we get to Babylon, we're doing security. So first Mardiv headquarters was right there. I actually had a run in with General Mattis of the Chow Hall. I'm on patrol, you know, where there was one of our positions there, and I had this giant dip in my mouth. And I'm like rounding the corner of the building, and he comes like right smack in my face. And the first thing he says, "Report your post, Marine."
No shit.
Oh yeah, I gutted the whole thing, and I was like, "Oh shit," you know, just hit my post, hit the, you know, report the post, and he was like, "All right, carry on."
Oh shit.
You know, you could see it in his face. He knew exactly what he was doing. And so he got that dip, and he's like, "Yeah."
Did it make you sick?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I threw up.
Yeah. I had that happen in buds actually, because you're not allowed to dip at all in buds technically. I mean, most guys still do, but I ran into the same instructor 2 days in a row at the same time at the same place, like walking out of the pit bathroom at lunch. And the first day he's like, he made me lay in this nasty fucking puddle of like overflow water and rinse my mouth with it and swallow it. And then the next day, like walking in, he actually started laughing. He saw me with a big dip. He's like, "You have got to be shitting me." And I just fucking had to do it again.
Did not learn your lesson.
Yeah, I puked like a son of a bitch both times. But all right, so you're in Babylon. How long was that deployment, and how active was it?
So we were there May to October. Okay. We ended up moving to Najaf at one point. Just the company was rotating out, and in Najaf we ended up doing handover with the Spanish multinational coalition in about September. Yeah. We didn't really get into much. There were, you know, just a couple like quick skirmishes, you know, on patrol in vehicle convoy. Guy would pop out with an AK, you know, and the gunner and the Humvee would just take care of it. Yeah. That kind of thing. But, you know, for the most part, it was, to me, it was a great opportunity to be embellished in that environment and not have to learn really hard lessons right away. It allowed me to kind of build on that. And then, you know, as my deployments continued, it obviously got heavier.
Yeah. So you go home in October. How long were you home before you came back?
I want to say it was about a little under 6 months.
No shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we were right back into the rotation.
Yeah. And was the second one way different, or was it just a little different?
No, it was way different. It was just 9 day. We got over there in 2004. So it was on the Iraq-Syria border in Husayba, Anbar province. So, you know, the heavy stuff.
When you first got there, from the day that you got there versus when you actually went out and got into the first like holy fuck moment, how long of a period of time was that?
I think it was one or 2 days.
Yeah,
we were already getting mortared like the day we got there, and then so my platoon was on the border checkpoint. So at the time it was still open. We had tons of vehicles coming through from Syria. And at that point, it had been long enough that foreign fighters were really starting to come in. The first fight in Fallujah had already occurred, and it was building towards the second one. So we're in Husaybah during Phantom Fury. All those foreign fighters coming through come in and get their rocks off and with us first. So that first engagement, it was kind of like a complex attack. We were taking small arms fire, rockets, and or not rockets, but RPGs, and the mortars. It was a wake up.
Yeah. I want to take a second to talk about something near and dear to my heart, and that is a staunch supporter of this podcast, which is Bubs Naturals. The hat sitting in front of me here on our coffee table here in the studio belonged to Glenn Doherty. His nickname was Bub. I did 2 platoons with him, and his childhood best friend and another colleague of theirs, Sean is the best friend, TJ is their colleague, started Bubs Naturals, which is a collagen and MCT oil company in Bub's or Glenn's honor. And, for me, it's an absolute honor to be sponsored by and working with a company that, was started in the honor of one of my closest friends and a guy that I went to war with. And, the Bubs brand is not only super quality, collagen powder as well as MCT oil powder, but they also give back to the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. They donate proceeds from their product sales to the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation, which, to me just furthers, the mission set on Veterans Day. They give 100% back. So I do believe it's the best collagen on the planet. I like to mix it in with morning coffee. The MCT oil powder, the same thing. Mixes in very easy. It tastes great, and it just kind of adds everything that you want to start your day off from a brain health standpoint, from joint support, gut support. MCT oil and collagen are 2 components, especially as we age, that are integral components to health. And so to be able to work with Bubs Naturals and be able to work with them and sponsor a product that number 1 is a high quality product, and number 2 is so near and dear to to my heart and to the Mic Drop podcast for who it was started for and what it stands for. It's just it's an amazing place to be. So it is Whole30 approved. It's sports certified, so you're not going to run into any problems with that. And I will say that right now they're offering 20% 20% off if you go to bubsnaturals.com and use the Mic Drop code. So I really highly encourage you to try it out, incorporate it into your day-to-day for joint health, for brain health, for cognition, for gut health, and to support an amazing organization that does a lot of things in Glenn Bub's honor. So go to bubsnaturals.com. Mic Drop is the code, 20% off. Hey guys, I wanted to talk about something that I've incorporated into my daily routine, my morning routine, that has had a remarkable impact on my life. It's called BioPro Plus. It's a non-synthetic HGH treatment. And, every year after puberty, your HGH levels naturally drop and exponentially sometimes can even drop by 50% by the time you're 35. I train jiu-jitsu 3-4 times a week. I lift 3-4 times a week. And BioPro Plus, without question, enhances my ability to train more days per week, harder, recover faster, enhance performance. I cannot say enough good things about this product. I've been taking it for a few months. It's remarkable, and I will continue to do so. If you want to, perform better, look better, feel better, I can't stress it enough. I've tried BioPro Plus, and I encourage you to go to bioproteintech.com. And if you want to get $30 off your first order, use the code MICDROP, MIKEDROP. And again, that's bioproteintech.com. I cannot stress enough, this stuff has been a game changer for me as I've gotten older. What was the operation that you were doing, or did it happen where you were based?
It just happened where we were based.
So they
attacked us.
I gotcha.
On the daily.
Can you kind of describe how it went?
Yeah, I mean, we returned fire. It was probably over in like 10 minutes though, and that was just life. We averaged about 63 engagements a month.
Holy fuck.
Oh yeah. We could have our posts get vehicle-borne IEDs driven into them. You'd be out on patrol and suicide bomber just walk up into the middle of your patrol. Sniper fire, RPGs, rockets on the base, mortars. We had a section of Force Recon attached to us, and we were their security element, kind of like how the Rangers go out. And we would go out and just do raids, probably 3 to 5 a week, driving around in AAVs, Humvees, doing hard hits. And
they're the element, and you guys are blocking force type stuff.
Yeah, we're out of cordon. There were quite a few of those raids that we're getting pulled into the rooms too.
Really?
Jumping in the stack because they're calling for reinforcements. It was heavy fighting, IEDs all the time.
And was that a 6-month deployment?
I think that one was 7, but that was about the standard.
Yeah. Was there an overarching mission set as to why you were there? Like when you got there, hey, here's our objective while we're here, and what was it?
Yes, at the time, I think it was the Civilian Defense Corps or something like that, CDC, basically repurposing the old Iraqi army to have a centralized kind of fighting force to defend the country against all the insurgency and sectarian violence. So we were working with them, training them, working with the police, so our kind of Iraqi police, local police there, and that was and then running that border checkpoint. That was our initial mission, but probably maybe a month or 2 before Phantom Fury kicked off, the police vacated. The CDC just disappeared. The border checkpoint got shut down, and it was just straight combat operations.
Wow. Were most of the times where you're going outside the wire as a blocking force for the Force Recon guys, or did you guys do some individual stuff?
We did individual stuff as well. So we basically broke down into rotations between camp security, external to the base. We had multiple OPs. So we had one kind of, the way that the city was set up, it was in a rectangular pattern, just standard grid streets, boxed by 4 main avenues of approach. And our base sat on the northeast corner of the town, right on the border. And basically the main street that was on the northern approach was the market. And it ran all the way down to the East End Road where there was like a soccer field. And that was their poo site for launching mortars at us. And we had pretty much a limit of advance about 1/3 into the city. If we went beyond that, we were getting engaged.
Yeah.
No questions asked. And we just had so much pressure on the base that we had to push elements out and take off some of that pressure because, all of our just life support was getting destroyed. Fuel bladders, chow hall, like everything. And so we had to push out into squad size elements. And we'd go out in the middle of the night, break into these houses and take them over, set up positions and just stand by to get into a firefight.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
About how big was the city population?
Ooh, I don't know, maybe 30,000.
Yeah.
Wasn't huge.
And when you guys were breaking into these houses, did you ever, trying to put, like, even for the listener, like trying to put yourself in that position of like you're sleeping, fucking crew of dudes rolls in and just takes your fucking house over. How did you guys run into resistance with the families? Were there any instances where it went horribly wrong?
None. For the most part, they were understanding.
Yeah.
at this time I was still super young in the Marine Corps, and we hadn't built into this idea of, working with your host nation populace to overcome the insurgency kind of concept yet. But we still knew, like, the human connection, right?
Yeah.
Don't be a dick, and we knew that, we're still kind of guests in their house, guests in their country. So we treated them as best we could.
Did you guys have interpreters?
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also all picked up enough, like, broken Arabic to try and get along.
Yeah. Did you guys pay them at all?
No.
Just, hey, we're taking your shit over. Fucking bear with us.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Looking back on it, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
We were doing stuff that, like, even when I got to MARSOC, seemed pretty outrageous.
Yeah. So none of those instances ever went bad.
Oh, well, with the actual families.
Yeah.
With our enemy, always.
Yeah. No. Yeah. We'll get into the enemy part, but with none of the families, nothing ever went.
No,
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
From the engagement with the actual enemy combatants, are there any of those operations that you did? We'll stick with just the overtaking of the houses first before we get into some of the MARSOC stuff, or the supporting of the MARSOC stuff. But did any of those engagements stick out as being super memorable? And if so, could you kind of walk us through, like, how it went?
Yeah, absolutely. There was one event that really stands out because of how just insane it was that we walked away unscathed. It was Christmas Eve, and like I said, that pressure had just been building. And we had been getting some pretty serious engagements where there were complex ambushes. They'd be kicked off by IEDs in the street, individuals from rooftops engaging with PKNs and RPGs, everything you can imagine. And ultimately we pushed out our entire platoon, 3 mutually supporting positions. We overtook 3 different houses on the East End road overlooking this kind of soccer field area. And we were going to be out for 2 days, or 3 days actually. And, we're embedded and we're waiting for something to happen, because the way it went down is, we get into these houses, and then the next day those families don't go out and engage in the local populace. So it's pretty quick, pretty easy for them and quick for them to figure out where the Marines are. And typically they'd engage us with, like, an RPG coming through a window on one of the posts, and so all day we're just waiting for this to happen. And it was, like, just eerily quiet. And it was a Friday, so you remember in Iraq on Fridays, it's busy. Mm-hmm. Call to prayer, everyone's out in the markets. There was none of that. It was real quiet. And so we kind of anticipated that something was going to happen. And, just things being what they are and Murphy's Law kicking in, our radio shit the bed. And so our no-comms plan was to break down, and essentially if we didn't miss our comm, or we missed our comms window, we're going to break down. The CAT team would come out. It was just their basically Humvees with, the heavy weapons on top. They would come out and pick us up, do a couple dead drops, and then relocate us to a new site. And so we start breaking down because we know we've missed our comm window. We can kind of tell on the base things are starting to spin up. We can just hear Humvees starting and whatnot. And so we know they're coming, and we break down, we get ready, at the entrance of this house, and they just hit some serious ambushes. And it was to the point where the enemy had created blockades during the day, just in a spot where we couldn't see. And, the convoy's blacked out, running on nods. So they get hit in this ambush, and, lead vehicles blocked in. This is all coming from after action reports, but the convoy gets split up trying to break contact and get out of this kill zone. And, you know, at the same time this is happening, we're getting engaged because we've now come out into the streets. There's just tracer fire going everywhere. We can't tell what's friendly fire and what's not, you know, because we got no comms. We can't make comms with the convoy. They're lost trying to find us. The chaos is just fully ensuing. Our mutually supporting positions, the other two squads, they're in, you know, full on combat, engaging from their positions. You know, there's just dudes running in the streets, and it was crazy. I mean, we're taking gunfire from all directions. You know, we can hear IEDs going off in the kill zone where this, you know, convoy is trying to get out. Finally, one of the vehicles makes it to us, and we're trying to break down and figure out who's going to take the first vehicle. And then, you know, ultimately a second vehicle starts rolling in. So we're like, all right, we're all getting out of here. We go to get into the vehicle, and I just remember watching my saw gunner running out in front of me, and rounds are just like skipping off the ground in front of him, and he's, you know, he's freaking out. He goes to grab the door of the Humvee, rips the handle off of it, you know, and it's just like that just adrenaline pumping, you know. And then he freaks out, you know, he locks up, and he's just smashing the door handle on the window, you know, like, let me in. And I was like, asshole, get around the car. There's other doors, you know, like, let's go. We load up, and we're trying to make it back to base. We just keep hitting all these barricades. And
what were the barricades made of? Tires and shit, or what?
Tires, dirt, trash, just
stuff.
Yeah. And, you know, it's the kind of thing where, you know, we keep approaching that, there's going to be an IED.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to find alternate routes back. There's rounds skipping off the Humvee. You know, our gunner, he's got a Mark 19. We're just handing him ammo cans. And we've got these, you know, it was like that point in the war where up armor's just starting to come, and it's like the doors and the windows, right? But they're the kind you can't roll down and engage through. You know, so we're just kind of like sitting ducks in this Humvee, and we're driving through, and we can like literally see, like, looking out the window, enemy combatants just engaging us in the street. And I remember rounding this one corner, and this guy pops out of this courtyard with an RPG on his shoulder, and we're moving away from him. So our ass is facing him now. And this is a light-skinned Humvee, you know, like, if that round goes through the back, we're all done. And I just remember, like, coming to that point, I was like, all right, this is it. You know, like, I'm ready. And the gunner goes dry, and he can't even engage. And we're screaming, like, he's right fucking there. You know, and I'm like trying to pass him this ammo can, and just, I don't know, whatever happened, he didn't engage us. He couldn't, something happened. But we got back to base finally, and no one was hurt. It was insane.
Wow.
It was like a Christmas miracle, truly, because, you know, we're exfilling on Christmas Day. It was intense.
Dude, that's incredible, man. Did you reflect on that at all afterwards, or were you guys just so busy you just kept going?
I mean, you know, you have like an AAR, you go sit down and you talk through, and it's like, all right, you know, the No-Commms plan, we need to do better, right? Yeah. There's got to be, you know, you don't learn about these things till later on, and it's all through reasons like that you develop PACE plans. You know, and we're just in the grunts. We don't get anything special. We got like a prick 117, you know?
Yeah.
You know, so it was enough of a reflection that it was like, wow, that was crazy. But, you know, then the next week, CAT team went out and we lost 5 guys. Wow. You know, so it's like, it was just this weird toss-up of how things were going to play out.
What does CAT stand for? Is it Combined Arms?
Combined Anti-Armor Team. So the idea was, you know, they had tow missiles that could go take out tanks, things like that.
Did you get a sense for your guys' success offensively, or I guess reactionary? But did you feel like you guys got some of them on the way out, or was it? Oh yeah, for sure. Oh no, I mean, we knew based on intel reports
that there were probably about 200 foreign fighters in just that one ambush. And it was like 8 blocks by 8 blocks. They had us.
I mean, did you kill any of them?
Oh, for sure. I want to say that some of the reports had somewhere around 30 EKIA.
Wow. And they didn't get any of you guys?
No, none.
But then so a few days later or the next week, you guys lost 5 guys. Were you in on that?
Not on that one.
Yeah.
Not on that patrol.
How did that impact you personally? Did you know any
Heavily?
guys?
Oh, yeah. One of them had been my roommate in the barracks before deployment.
What can you say what happened? Like how did it happen?
Just another complex ambush. I remember the Humvee had ultimately burned down, so all that was left was a skeleton of it.
Were there guys in it?
Yeah,
All 5?
all 5.
So was it like got hit with an IED or an RPG?
No, it was an RPG.
And it just disabled it, and then it was.
Yeah, I think there
over.
were a lot of secondaries from the Mark 18 ammo in there.
Man, that's rough shit.
It is.
Just no 2-8. I mean, war is just rough either way. I mean,
yeah. One thing that we did, and I didn't really appreciate it fully at the time, we held memorial services then, like in country the day or day after, depending on time frame. But it was real and it was raw. We lost family. Like these are people that we shared.
everything.
Hopes and dreams with, talking about family and girlfriends and wives, all these things,
Yeah. How many of you were there on that base?
So it was a company, company plus. So infantry company, I don't know, what was like 130-ish.
Yeah.
Plus we had the forced recon element. We had a sniper platoon, full complement of AAVs. We would have tanks every now and then come in.
So probably close to 200.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At what point was that where you guys lost 5 guys in the deployment? How far along were you there?
Oh, we lost way more than that. Ultimately, like throughout the entire deployment, I think the first loss of life probably happened within the first couple of months.
Were there any operations that you were on where you guys lost guys?
Yeah.
Can you would you talk about one of those?
Yeah. There was one day we were doing a day patrol, and after this event, we stopped doing those day patrols. It created too much chaos with civilians in the mix, and it just prevented us from being able to truly use all the lethality necessary to overcome the enemy. But on this particular day, we were doing a patrol with the intention to receive contact and then react to it. We were driving up on the north side of the Market Street on the opposite side of a canal, and it was a dirt road, and we just kept hitting IED after IED. My AAV, we hit one IED and lost our tracks, so we were immobilized. We pushed out. We were with the recon element at that point. We pushed them out to take over the nearest building and get Overwatch set up. And we got out of the AV and we were set up in fighting positions. We quickly dug skirmish holes, and we were just waiting for a more complex ambush to occur. And nothing happened. So we did what we were trained to do within our SOPs. We called for support QRF to come out so we could tow the AAV back. And there was a Humvee of the QRF squad, and they rolled up coming down this dirt road towards us from the base. And I don't know the size of this IED that they hit, but it was highly destructive. The Humvee was a open open bed Humvee, so everyone's just sitting on the benches. There's a squad of Marines in the back. It was just horrendous, like throwing bodies into the air, and when it exploded, it was probably a good 50 meters from us, and I could already see body parts not attached to my friends anymore, and we knew we had massive loss of life. So we immediately called dust off. We put in, for larger QRF to come, and at this point, in the war, there were no minesweepers. We didn't have any of that kind of equipment, or any of those SOPs established. Even, 5s and 25s didn't exist yet, and so we had to bring them in through the city to come around on the west side or the east side of us to avoid another IED coming on that path, and then they hit the ambush, and then that hit us, so it triggered it, and then we just started taking small arms fire, and a couple of the guys, the way that we had positioned ourselves, we were on the opposite side of this dirt road in our skirmish holes, so we could see over the road essentially into the city. And we could see guys from these rooftops engaging, machine guns, AKs, RPGs, and we just started, engaging back. And a couple of guys kept getting taking rounds. For the most part, they were all, flesh wounds, like in the shoulder or something. Finally we got the QRF to us, and we got the AV hitched up, and we're getting out of there. And the recon element went to break down, and on their exfil, one of their guys got shot in the back of the head, and that one was just horrible.
Were you right there?
Yeah, just watching that, and it was honestly the reaction of the rest of the team to that was what really hit me. Like they were just wrecked right then and there, and I'll never forget that.
The IED explosion, did it kill everybody in the vehicle?
It did not. There were where it hit, it must have been remote controlled, because it didn't hit the front of the vehicle. It hit the rear where everyone was at, and fortunately they had Kevlar blankets on the bottom of the vehicle and on the sides, and that took a majority of the shrapnel, but we lost, I think, 3 guys from that vehicle.
And I'm assuming several other lost body parts.
Oh yeah, arms, legs.
Do you know if anybody from the vehicle was uninjured?
I mean,
relatively speaking.
Relatively, everyone had a Purple Heart from that.
Yeah, man. The recon guys, when you were right there and one of their teammates was shot, you said that it wrecked them immediately. Was it to the point, severity-wise, where combat ineffectiveness was?
You could see that happening if we hadn't been ready to break down and get the hell out of there. And by this point, we had air on station, so they're dropping GBUs, and we got Cobras. If we hadn't had that and we were still engaged in some pretty serious combat, they would have been out of the fight for sure.
Yeah, and these are Force Recon guys.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Do you know who
it was Second Force.
I mean, the guy that actually was killed. What role did he play in their unit? Was he one of their senior guys, or?
He was a sergeant. I'm not sure, how senior he would have been in that team.
Yeah, that's brutal. Within the fighting force that you guys encountered while you were on that deployment, were you aware then or now of what the breakdown was of foreign fighters, former Saddam loyalists, former Iraqi military? Do you know what that mix was like?
For the most part, we were under the impression that everything was foreign fighters.
Yeah. So Probably more motivated, more reckless.
Oh yeah,
more dedicated.
Absolutely.
Yeah, harder to deal with.
Absolutely. They had uniforms. Like
really,
they would come out in their Adidas tracksuits and balaclavas.
Yeah.
We had a enemy with a face.
Yeah. I wonder if Adidas is aware, as a brand, of how popular their shit is with terrorists.
Right. It's like the Toyota Hilux.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it'd be interesting to know if they have any awareness of that, or like what their take is. For that matter, I guess a lot of mobsters wear it too. I wonder if, I don't know what it is with tracksuits, Adidas tracksuits, that attracts fucking people that, whatever. That's a whole nother story.
I know.
Sounds like a rough deployment.
It was.
When you reflect on your entire military career, was that deployment the roughest?
By far.
By far. I've interviewed a lot of guys, a lot of combat veterans, both from Iraq and Afghanistan, Syria, you name it. And I find that a lot of the deployments that have that kind of somber heaviness to it are often infantry guys. Like, you get some pretty no shit there we were crazy stories from, special operations guys, tier 1 guys. But when it's like extended, just fucking treachery for 6 months long of just getting kicked in the balls over and over and over, the infantry seems to take the cake in that department.
For sure.
And it's brutal to think, especially given the fact that like they usually have less equipment, less training, they're younger, less experience, and getting put into these scenarios. I mean, one could argue that that's a big contributing factor as to why it goes the way that it goes. But I also think that, the infantry, both Army and Marines, get put into environments and scenarios that I think oftentimes, I don't know if it's just, hey, that's the nature of the job and we need guys to do this and it's going to suck and it's tough and that's part of the gig or what. But man, it just sure seems like infantry gets put through the fucking ringer a lot. Man, I mean, hearing your stories and again, kind of paralleling them to some of the others that I've heard from other guys that served in similar units, it's just, man, it seems like a rough fucking gig. When you, I guess taking one step back, do you know about how many guys you guys lost on that deployment?
I don't have a good
a
number for that. Yeah. I mean,
50?
I don't think it was quite 50. I think it was probably around 30.
Yeah. Did you ever get injured?
No.
That's wild.
I mean, IEDs, like the blast from that.
But no, legit.
No. Yeah. And even then, like nobody thought to think anything of that then.
Yeah. When you came home from that deployment, what was your mentality then? And was it that deployment where you were acting as a blocking force the catalyst that made you want to go do recon shit, or?
No, it wasn't. I loved being in the mud with the men. I loved being infantry, and coming back from that deployment, while there was a lot of hardship and a lot of adversity, those of us that did come back, we knew that we were going right back out, and so there was little room to let it overcome us, and we found strength in each other, and we knew that the mission carries on, and you got to find a way to be combat effective, and we just put ourselves back into the fight. We worked hard and we played hard.
Yeah. As you guys know, I've been using Mudwater personally for a while now. It's a great alternative to coffee with 4 adaptogenic mushrooms with only a fraction of caffeine. As you get in a cup of coffee, you get energy without the jitters or crash that you get with coffee. Each ingredient was added for a purpose: cacao and chai for a hint of caffeine and hot chocolate-like flavor, lion's mane to support focus, cordyceps to help support physical performance, and chaga and reishi to support your immune system. I love how it tastes. I personally am a big fan of the lion's mane aspect, as I get older and mentally I'm all over the place with all the different things I have going on, I find that the focus and kind of brain power that I get from that is top notch and crucial. It's Whole30 approved. It's 100% USDA organic, non-GMO, gluten-free, vegan, and kosher certified. And they do donate monthly to psychedelic research and treatments, as they believe the country is in a mental health epidemic, which I think we can all agree, and see psychedelics as useful tools. So they help out immensely with donating to those programs. You can get 15% off and a free frother if you go to mudwater.com and use the code MicDrop, all one word, for 15% off. Again, that's mudwater.com, MUDWTR.com, and use the code MicDrop, all one word, for 15% off. Do it. Was there any part of you that wanted to get back to hand them their ass and keep?
Hell yes.
Yeah.
Hell yes. I would say that, looking back on things now, probably not the best decision, but they sent us right back to the same city.
In 6 months?
It was a little bit longer. So we came back in March of 2005, and then we were back out in February of 2006. So just under a year. And, going back to that same city, at the time, Operation Steel Curtain had just occurred. So we were in the, during that time frame, we called it clear hold build, and we were in the hold phase. And so we had that soccer field got turned into a patrol base after that clearing operation of Steel Curtain. We had that, and then on the south end of the city was a train station, an old abandoned train station. So we had a patrol base there. And initially, I was still in 2nd platoon, so I was at that train station, and we would just push out patrols every single day, to try and just hold that space that we had taken. And I remember now, I just had a lot of resentment, a lot of anger. I was a young dude, so I had no way to channel that.
Did you find yourself trying to channel it on operations?
I don't know. I let it loose,
In what way?
Just the way I would treat the local populace. We were so jaded by how that previous deployment had went. We didn't trust anyone. We still had quite a few individuals that would come into our patrols and detonate. So we would not let anyone near us on these patrols. And that was.
So, if a civilian started walking towards you, they're not going to make it very far.
No, our ROEs had kind of changed a little bit, so we weren't just straight engaging. We had to go through all these procedures. You're just like shout, shove, shoot, throw a flag at them, throw a pen or shoot a pen flare, warning shot, and then you could engage. And it was stressful as fuck.
Yeah. From when you left there, the deployment before, and when you got back almost a year later, was the feeling and the vibe with the city, was it way different? Did it seem like, holy shit, I don't even recognize this place? Or was it?
It was. It was just eerily quiet. There was no enemy that had a face anymore. It was a faceless enemy,
So the Steel Curtain kind of pushed them into the shadows.
Yep.
Yeah. From your perspective, in terms of fighting them, did that, I'm assuming, make it much harder to fight them?
Absolutely. We had to rely a lot more on intelligence, and those patrols, we would bring out our humaners, and they were trying to build their source networks and get early warnings, indications and warnings for attacks and whatnot.
Yeah. How did that deployment go overall comparatively? Was it pretty similar in terms of busy?
It wasn't. I still have the round that I kept in condition 1 for that whole deployment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You never fired around?
I did not.
Wow, no shit.
I didn't. I was,
right.
I was in a leadership position by this point. My men were, doing all the engaging, but it does stress that difference,
Yeah.
It was a much more strategic and deliberate approach to how we did things. We had a lot more training by that point. You know, a lot of lessons learned, and a lot of infantry units that had taken their experience, and we had built out, you know, pretty good understanding of how to engage in that kind of environment.
So it sounds like, from a mission success standpoint, in terms of your ability to come home, reach your objectives, things of that nature, it was a more effective and efficient deployment.
Absolutely. Yeah. It gave me the closure I needed to be able to walk away from that enlistment and do something different.
Yeah. Be like, we did what we needed to do and got it done.
Yes.
Yeah. Any operations stand out as being super memorable from that entire deployment?
Nothing from the standpoint that you'd imagine. It was like dealing with all the other little things, you know, the just intricacies of deployed life.
Yeah.
You know, and the hardship of dealing with that stress and the unknown.
When you look back on that deployment, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
It was a very difficult deployment from the stance of not being able to know what to expect and not having that same ability to just engage the enemy that we did before.
Yeah. How long was that one?
Another like 6 or 7 months.
You come home from that. At that point, now you pivot into a different role, correct?
Yes. And I went over to Quantico as a combat instructor.
How was that?
It was incredible.
Yeah.
I got to see a different side of the Marine Corps. I got to, you know, see the academia side, you know, and I was a combat instructor for new lieutenants out of OCS, and they were going into the basic school. And it was incredible because I was surrounded by some like incredible Marines. Captain Sean Tosh was like one of them. You know, he was one of the instructors of the basic school there. I got to learn from all these people and learn about Marine Corps doctrine. And at that point, I also got really heavy into martial arts. The Martial Arts Center of Excellence was right across the street from us.
Is that Marine related, or it's?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Marine Corps martial arts program and the Marine Corps martial arts program, MCMAP. And it was built off of the techniques and concepts coming out of Vietnam, like I think they called it line fighting was back then. But it was pretty awesome. I had the experience to be able to go through their instructor course, and so I became a martial arts instructor, and then I went back through to become an instructor trainer. And then I started running instructor courses, teaching other Marines how to be instructors. And it was extremely rewarding.
How would you characterize the Marine martial arts program in terms of to reduce it to a civilian counterpart? What would you say it's a mix of, or most like?
So it's a weapons-based system. The idea is one mind, any weapon. You know, we learned...
Suction cup dildo?
Everything.
Anything. All right.
Anything you can kill a man with.
Suction cup dildo for sure.
Straight down the throat.
Yeah.
Choke yourself.
Yeah. You stole my line.
I did.
Well, it has to be said at least once, so I'm glad we checked that box. Are there ground? I mean, is there a lot of ground fighting? Not a lot. Is it Krav Maga? Like, how would you describe it?
There's a heavy focus on judo. Standing is obviously the best place you want to be. You want your enemy on the ground. So any ground fighting that we did was with a purpose to get back to your feet. You know, it's one of those things where, unfortunately, the way that the program was built and the belt level that you would work through in the early belts, all you focus on is ground fighting. And unfortunately, Marines get drawn into this idea of like, oh, well, the better I am at ground fighting, the better I am as a martial artist. When that's not the reality, right? Like the last place you want to be is on the ground, you know, in a real fight, like combat, life and death. Obviously, sport is very different, you know, and so there was a lot of emphasis on ensuring that Marines understood that. And, we did everything, like live blade fighting. I ended up, when I went down to MARSOC, and then right after ITC, I had graduated our pipeline, I went back up to Quantico for my second degree black belt. And I went through that course, and I ended up getting stabbed in the face with a bayonet.
No shit.
Oh, yeah.
Is that why the scars on that your beard are covering?
Yes, yes. That's one of them.
Yeah.
So it broke my jaw here, nose, orbital socket. Like,
damn,
it crushed me. I had my jaw wired closed for like a month and a half.
I did too, but I was 5. I fell off a bike and broke my jaw when I was a kid. But man, that's rough shit. So you didn't get your second degree black belt on that?
I did. Fortunately, it was the last event that I had to do.
Damn. So it's always the last fucking thing.
Yeah.
Overall, your time there sounds like you enjoyed it. It was rewarding. Kind of gave you a different perspective of what the Marine Corps is and what have you. Anything else that's worth mentioning about your time there?
Yeah. I got put into a lot of leadership roles, and it was a great opportunity, kind of that bloom where you're planted kind of concept. And one of my really good friends there he just became like my brother. His name is Jay Hoskins. He came out of one of the infantry units that had been in Phantom Fury. So he and I had a lot of shared experiences. We lost a lot of friends together. And so it was just a good bonding moment to have that kind of a brother and the strength in that. And the reason I bring him up is he ultimately got killed in Afghanistan. And that's just, one of those things, like, even in those types of environments where you're in dwell, those bonds that you build, like, they get torn away from you.
Yeah.
And that the military life is challenging.
Yeah, it absolutely is. How long were you there?
2 years. I was supposed to be there 3, but I got bored. I wanted to get back out, and then that was around the time MARSOC had been formed. So I got there in 2006 when MARSOC was formed with Det One, and I didn't know anything of it at the time. But in 2008, early 2008, they sent up a recruiter to Combat Instructor Company where I was, and I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. I went with it.
Yeah. And obviously they let you go. Was there any pushback?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had to fight to get my way down there.
Yeah.
But I'd been at Quantico long enough, and I'd learned a lot of the intricacies about the Marine Corps and how manpower and reserves works. And so I just took myself down to my monitor's office, and I was like, no, I need orders down to Lejeune.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going there.
Yeah.
And I went behind my leadership's back to do it.
Yeah.
But I had, that was
you did what you had
path.
to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get down there. What was that like?
It was incredible. I got assigned. So in the early days, they were hurting so bad to get people in that were qualified. And at the time, we were only taking infantry MOSs. So the pool to pull from was challenging and competitive. And at the time, I was able to PCS to MARSOC and await my spot at selection. So I was there for maybe a month before I went off to selection, and my entire job was just to prepare for that.
Yeah.
And I was around. It was in a platoon of same types of Marines.
Yeah.
All combat vets.
Yeah. Was the selection? Did it stack up how you thought it would? Was it?
Oh, it was way harder than I thought it was going to be.
That's a recurring theme here.
Dude.
Totally kicked me in the nuts. Wasn't expecting it. How long was it?
I think it was a little over 3 weeks.
Okay. You made it first time?
Yes.
Yeah. How many guys started versus how many finished in your group?
We had somewhere around 100, and we graduated in like 32, 38, somewhere around there.
Did most of the 70% ish quit or just not make it?
We lost a good portion of them in the first few days. So the way that we did it was out of Courthouse Bay, Camp Lejeune. We did kind of like your initial screenings. You do a PFT and some psych evals, stuff like that, and you'd be surprised that weeded people out.
Yeah.
Then we did the pool.
I wouldn't be that surprised, actually.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, it happens. But one of the really huge differentiators was the water.
Yeah.
And they threw us in, 30-minute tread with full camis. The guys were just dropping.
Yeah.
Just quitting.
Yeah, that's wild. So you make it through that, and then now that you're selected, what happened after that?
So at that point, I go back to, at the time, it was Marine Special Operations Advisor Group, which ultimately became 3rd MSOB. So I went back to there. I was assigned to a team, and I started doing OJT, waiting for my seat to go to ITC. So I think I got back in February of 2009.
ITC is what?
Individual training course. Okay. So it's our qualifying pipeline.
Okay.
What makes you a Raider.
How long is that?
Ours was 9 months.
Yeah.
We were the second class, though. The first class technically wasn't even considered ITC until I think they were maybe a month in, and then it got the so-called designation. And theirs, they graduated and then had to come back for an additional like amphib course.
Yeah.
And theirs I think was 8 months. And then, they're still just trying to figure stuff out for ours.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to one of my buddies the other day. He's still in, and he told me that he did a stint at the schoolhouse, and he was talking to some of the cadre from there, and they straight up told him, like, we didn't even know what we were doing back then. We didn't know what the limits were, and we just pushed you guys until you broke.
Yeah.
And then we're like, all right, that's it. Like, all right.
That's the standard.
That's the standard.
Yeah. Wow. And I love it. So with that 9-month pipeline, is it broken down just into like different tactical blocks of training, and what are they generally speaking?
Yeah. So I want to say the first portion was like small unit tactics, just brilliance in the basics, infantry tactics and building on that. That had a culminating exercise called Raider Spirit, and this is like that thing where they're like, how far can we push them till they break? I don't know if you've ever done any training out in like North Carolina, Camp Lejeune area.
In North Carolina, yes, but it was a secret squirrel intel base where it wasn't physical. So
yeah, where we were is just like all swamps.
Yeah.
And so everyone got trench foot. We're out there for like, I want to say it was 3 weeks, just living miserable.
Yeah,
100-pound rucks, just moving like 75-mile movements at a time, like just crushing you.
Wow. And then, so infantry, small unit tactics.
Yep. So that developed into, I think from there we did A and B. So one half of the class went through SEER, and we did full spectrum. MARSOC had its own, which was actually really well done. I was impressed. And then the other half did flat range. And then from there, we moved as a class into CQB. We did, I want to say, month-long package for CQB, and then we had a qual, standard like SOCOM qual. We lost a lot of guys at that point. And then from there, we moved into more of the irregular warfare and special operations tasks. Obviously, your typical like foreign internal defense, DA, SR, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Was that the end of it?
We had a culminating exercise called Derna Bridge, kind of like ODAs do Robin Sage. And that was, I want to say, 3 weeks long. Something like that.
Yeah. And then you graduate and you make it.
Yeah. Somewhere in there we did an amphib package too.
Yeah. All right. So a 9-month pipeline, you kind of cover everything basically that you're going to be doing. And then from there, now you're a Raider.
Yes.
And from there, where did you go?
So I went back to, I think it was the same team. we're in influx, right? So we became MSOAG, the third MSOB. Well, it was the third and fourth, and then it consolidated fourth back into third. So our team designation changed, but it was the same people.
Yeah.
So I get back to that team, and at the time we began our individual pipeline, workup. So I was like the 18 Fox equivalent for our team. So I just started going through all my intel schools, getting trained up, some other, like basic stuff like jump school, things like that. But then we started our team training pipeline workup for, I think at the time we were slotted for the mission to go advise the Kenyan Rangers for their incursion into Somalia. And then ultimately we ended up losing that mission set, and we went over to Senegal. We're training the Senegalese special forces for combat or counter narcotics deployment that they were going to go on.
Yeah. Wow. Taking one step back, when you graduated, did they make a big deal out of it? I mean, did it seem like a big deal? Obviously it is, but I mean, was it like, holy shit, we made it?
It was.
Yeah.
We started with 120 and graduated 38.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
Yeah.
At this point, MARSOC had really started flourishing, and there was a lot of tradition being put into what we were doing.
Is there at that point, once you graduate that, an insignia designation that you're now awarded that if you're walking around base, everybody's like, holy shit, that's a MARSOC guy?
Not at this time yet. We didn't even have an MOS.
Oh, wow.
So at this point, we graduated. And
so you couldn't even brag about it?
I mean,
without saying anything.
Yeah.
You couldn't
right.
walk around. It's like, with a trident on your chest, like.
Correct.
Everybody knows what that is, But.
Yeah. The biggest differentiator at the time was like your dual cool is what we call this, your scuba and jump wings.
Yeah.
Gold wings. And so, that was the thing. Everyone's like, all right, I gotta get my dual cool now.
Yeah.
Eventually we ended up getting an MOS, and then down the road, the radar device.
Yeah. So, all right, so you go through the individual pipeline, fast forwarding to preparing for advising the Kenyan Special Forces. Did you go do that?
We did not. We did the workup for it, all the intelligence development, preparations, intel prep of the battle space. And then, it came down to, I think ODA got that JPAT.
Yeah.
So we go over to Senegal. We do that workup and then deployment with the understanding that we would, I think at the time we were going to go from there to like Botswana or something, somewhere else out in Africa, and then that all gets cut short and we get brought back because we're going to get chopped to, at the time we're on the west or east coast, we're going to get chopped to the west coast to first MSOB to go attach with Alpha Company to go to Afghanistan. So we get brought back early. All those other missions get cut short, and we go straight into our individual training again, do that for a few months, and then immediately deploy to California for the rest of our workup. So, we were there for, I don't know, maybe 6 months leading up to our deployment for Afghanistan.
Yeah. You were in Senegal.
Yes.
For a little while. What was that? What's Senegal like?
It was pretty cool.
Yeah. And what's the culture and the people like there?
Yeah, they're a very active people. They all embrace physical fitness, and it's a part of their culture. Like driving around Dakar, the capital, kind of like some of those main avenues throughout the city. They've got running tracks, like little stations for calisthenics, pull-ups, all that kind of stuff.
Do the people seem fit?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Despite a lot of poverty and, just what you're going to deal with in Africa, they seem to be, doing well and mentally thriving in that environment.
Were they receptive to you guys as Americans? Like, how did they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The populace and their military, very welcoming.
Yeah.
Great
cool.
people. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. So going back to, you go to finish your workup to go to Afghanistan. You end up going to Afghanistan. And this is what, 09, 2010?
No. So by this point it's 2012.
Okay. Was the group that you went with, was it all MARSOC guys? Was it a contingent of different?
Yeah, so our core team was MARSOC. So we had 14 individuals, and our core team broken down in 2 elements and a headquarters element. We had SARCs, in each of our elements. So they were basically, Raider. We brought them into the fold. They went through their own selection process and pipeline too, and then through the workup. They're trained to the same standards.
Yeah.
So that core team was then reinforced with enablers, and at the point that the place that we were going to was going to be in Kajaki district of Helmand province, and we were going forward to do district stability operations, which up to that point everyone had been doing village stability operations. And so our team was pretty robust. We had, I think, total of 23. We have everything from dog handlers, comms. We had maintainers, for our RG31s, EOD techs, humaners, pretty intel, SEGANT, all the complements.
So a pretty significant contrast from the last deployment you were on.
Absolutely.
In every way.
Every way.
Gear, training, caliber of guy, not to take anything away from infantry guys, but
no, it's just way more time spent doing those basic tasks, those infantry tasks.
And way more support.
Way more support, all the funding,
Yeah.
it was different.
And how was that deployment? Was it busy?
At first, yes, but then towards the tail end of that deployment, we knew that the team coming to replace us would just be tearing everything down for a drawdown. So it was kind of a kick in the gut.
Yeah.
And so we had to kind of change our approach, and our leadership was a bunch of seasoned dudes, and we had a lot of kind of junior guys that hadn't seen combat. By this point, MARSOC had opened it up to any MOS. Like if you meet the standard, you're an operator. And so a lot of those guys just didn't have that experience, and they're hungry, and they wanted to go out and get in gunfights. And it was just a different approach that we had. Our myself, the other element leader, our ops chief and team chief, we just didn't want to lose anybody again. We didn't see the
for
point
no
to
reason.
it. For no reason. Yeah.
No, I get that. I mean, to me, it's such a kind of a double-edged sword with young, hungry guys that want to get some. And I think most of them do until they do, and then they realize, don't shy away from it, but don't do it unnecessarily. It's so weird. Like the younger guys are, the more gung ho they are about doing really stupid shit. And it's like there's a difference between being brave and courageous and having valor versus just being fucking stupid about what you're doing to say you did something.
Exactly.
So early on, when it was still busy, were you guys going out and getting into gunfights, or was it?
Not quite. So before we set into Gajaki, we're down in Lower Helmand at Leatherneck with our sister team at Camp Bastion, and that team they had the mission of working with the 7th Kandak, the Afghan commandos, and they would go out and clear white space for teams that were doing village and district stability operations. And so, we get there, I want to say it was November 2012. And our plan was to set in December, into Kajaki. But for whatever reason, we ended up getting, pushed to the right. I think it was our logistics train was just so messed up. There was, it took a lot of effort to get anything on trucks the whole way up there.
Mm-hmm.
and there was a lot of just roadside IEDs, and so to plan for that, and I think it was we wanted to wait till the ground froze a little more, to make that movement safer, and so we instead stuck down there at Camp Bastion and planned a Dagger Op with the 7th with our complement, our sister team in the 7th Candac.
What is a Dagger Op?
So Dagger Op is that insert to create that white space. Okay. Basically, you're going in there to banging out with the enemy. And so I was, because I was one of the element leaders and I had some secondary tasks to build out, source networks. I was, afforded the opportunity to go on that operation. And so it was pretty hair raising. We flew in on Black Chinooks with 160th, and going into there, we were going to set off on the Y 300 meters from our actual compound that we were going to go take over, and push out our patrolling ops from there to create that white space. And we get about halfway to the drop point, and our JTAC, is on comms with we had a half skid out in front, just checking the area and looking for any activity. And, we're all on comms with the bird, so we can hear everything going on. Our JTAC starts just dropping bombs because there's dudes literally out running, setting up positions. I think we had, over a dozen EKIA before we even get down on the ground. So, 160th makes a call halfway, in flight. They're like, no, we're putting you on the X. So we're like getting ready, trying to relay that to these commandos who are, they're just ready to just fall in line and get in the fight, and so ramp goes down and there's just gunfire going off, and birds from the sky raining down hell. We got C-130s on station.
Welcome to Afghanistan.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And we were there for, 3 days just duking it out. We were launching mortars from the courtyard. Guys were coming in on the tree line 100 meters from our position.
Were you getting some at that point?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was crazy.
So you don't have that bullet from...
Yeah, and that was the first time I got to actually shoot mortars in combat.
Oh, really?
It was fun.
Yeah. Did it take you some time to get that dialed in, or were you pretty effective with it right
No,
away?
we were very effective. This team, was their, I want to say their second or third rotation doing this.
Oh, okay.
And so they had it all figured out. We had the mortar plate. The second, we get into the compound, we're setting that up because that is our lifeline, on the ground. As soon as air's gone, that's it.
Yeah.
So we get, the mortar plate set in, and we got all the azimuth spray painted on the inside of the courtyard all the way around.
Oh, nice.
So, we got FO on the roof, and he's just calling out azimuth, distance, and direction. And, we're hand firing this.
Yeah.
So, we're just aiming at the numbers on the wall. Like, all right, that's roughly 180. All right, we got to go here.
Yeah.
Hey, about this inclination, boom, dropping.
Yeah. And just slaying
and
people.
Just correct and fire, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. What's the range on the ones you guys are shooting?
They're 60s, so I don't know what. Oh man, I should know these things, right? It's all.
You should know it better than me for sure. We never fired mortars other than a couple times in training, just fucking with it, But
yeah, I think you could get 1,000 meters on those.
Yeah. All right. So busy at first, then things settled down.
They did. So after that operation, we came back and we pushed. Our logistics train all the way out to Kajaki, took one IED on the way, destroyed one of our Connex boxes, some gear in there,
Yeah.
But nothing too crazy. We get set in and, we're just taking pop shots from Dishkas, like mountaintops away.
I mean, at this point, the fighting season's over. It's wintertime. It's pretty slow and not much going on.
Yeah. For the most part, we're, we also look a lot different than the other Marines in the AO.
Yeah.
They're all wearing their desert digis, and we got woodlands and Gucci gear.
And fucking,
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, these are the guys you don't fuck with.
Yeah.
It's amazing that, it reminds me of really any profession or industry in that the better you get, like the less you do, and it's kind of a strange irony in the military. Like we were talking about, like the infantry guys, they're in the thick of it all goddamn day, every day. The more specialized you get, not that, there's been plenty of, even all the way up to tier 1 guys that come on here that have, super busy, crazy stories. But even the missions and operations that they're going on, usually they're just so much more efficient and better trained with, way better resources, that it's so much more strategic and calculated. And a lot of times they're not as busy because they're so good at what they do, and kind of that same thing, like we're not even going to fuck with these guys. We're going to live to fight another day and go fight these guys instead or whatever.
Oh, absolutely. And we just had so much better intel support, and it was real time, right? Like we're collecting signals intelligence that we're getting that instant feedback on.
You wish the entire U.S. military had, every unit had that kind of level of support. It'd be...
Yeah, like I don't know. Let's do away with the F-35s. The supply chains are destroyed, right?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah, that they don't have the parts to fix. Did you any good dog stories from that deployment?
Yeah, so we had two dogs, Wilbur and Willie. Yeah,
couple of fucking rednecks.
I know, right?
That's awesome.
Actually, our dog handler for Willie was straight redneck. He was, Virginia boy.
Yeah,
I love him.
Wilbur and Willie. What did they get some?
Yeah, they would. Wilbur, he was better trained dog. He was I want to say he was a German Shepherd. Willie was a IDD dog.
Oh, okay. Floppy-eared dog.
Yeah. With a lab.
Yeah.
He was our camp pet. You know, like he was great, but he was also a lot older.
Yeah.
One of the dudes on the team, the other element leader, ended up adopting him after
cool.
We got back from that deployment, because the Marine Corps did away with the entire IDD program. So it was a cool little and actually. The other dog handler got to adopt Wilbur.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So, but did Wilbur get to fuck anybody up?
I don't think he ever got any attacks.
Well, he's not where you were there.
Yeah. Not
any good IED finds or anything?
Yeah, there were a couple good caches that we found.
What were they? Just like RPGs and fucking...
No. This is all IEDs. Homemade explosives. Yeah. In the jugs.
Yeah. That's good stuff, no doubt about it.
For sure.
How many deployments did you do with MARSOC?
Technically 3.
Okay.
So Jordan, Senegal, and Afghanistan.
So your time within MARSOC in that Afghanistan deployment, that was the last of it?
It was.
Yeah. From there, what transpired when you came home and kind of decided, okay, that's it?
So during that deployment, we dealt with a little bit of inner team dynamics and some adversity. We had an officer that saw things a little different than enlisted.
In terms of what, like he hamstrung you, or?
Yeah, a little bit. He wanted to get his combat action ribbon. This is my interpretation. Obviously, not trying to trash talk him or anything, but. He would not let the ground force commander concept go to anyone else. He had to be the guy on the ground doing it. And it was, really difficult to deal with. It ended up our team chief and he did not get along great, and just added a lot of unneeded, complications to our deployment. And coming back from that, there was just further nonsense. There's like a command investigation against us based off of false allegations that he made. And
did that go anywhere?
No, of course not, because they're false allegations. Yeah. But it was just the dealing of that put this bad taste in my mouth, where it allowed me the opportunity to say, okay, I can hang my hat up here and be happy with what I've done. There were also some other things in my life just pulling me to leave. that workup leading to that deployment, our team had a 90% divorce rate, just because we're gone so much.
Were you married at the time?
I was. My marriage was not great, and I, had this idea. So I was married to someone in the Army, and
it's not your wife now, I take it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And she had been on a deployment in Germany, and started having an affair, and dealing with that adversity. I was trying to fix things. We had what I thought was my son, had a child together.
Turns out he's not your son, huh?
Correct.
Wow.
Found that out, going through the divorce.
How old was he when you found that out?
6 years old.
No shit.
Yeah.
Man. How did you deal with that?
It was really hard. At this point, I'd left the Marine Corps because she had gotten an opportunity to go to flight school, become a warrant officer. And I thought, in my head, like, okay, she's given up so much for me to be on all these deployments and be gone. I thought I could look past, what had happened while she was deployed and kind of forgive if, maybe I sacrificed a little for her. So I got out and, was just doing the dad thing, trying to let her go to flight school. And then it happened again. And it was just
same guy.
No, different.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, all right, this is a pattern.
Yeah.
I just couldn't be a part of that anymore. I'd given up my whole career, and then it was just taken from me. And then that's when the truth came out of, about him not being my son.
Did you have a sense that she knew that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, did you suspect, or were you caught totally off guard?
I was a super naive young Marine coming back from a deployment. It was the really rough deployment, and we had just started dating, and then she ended up getting pregnant, and I thought it was me, so I did the honorable thing and I married her. And then just to have all that stripped away from me and find out it was all a lie amidst me dealing with my own transition and loss of identity, and it literally felt like my whole world was shattered.
Yeah.
And I was severely depressed, just in a really freaking bad space.
Yeah.
And the only thing I had going for me at the time, I got out in July of 2014, and I thought I was going to go back to school, finish my degree in kinesiology, and open up a gym. I was really into CrossFit, so I was at a CrossFit gym, and that was the only thing that got me through. Having that community, being physically active, and engaging my mind and body that way.
You opened a gym?
No, I didn't. I was going to school so I could get a degree to do that, and I was working as a coach at the gym. And then at that point, after my whole kind of world fell apart, I was looking at what was going on in Iraq and Syria with ISIS, and that was kind of a new call to arms for me. I was like, all right, look, I lost my identity as a Marine, as a Raider. I don't have that anymore. In my head, I'm thinking this, right? I don't have those brothers with me, but I'm not done serving. And so I got into contracting, and I was supporting JSOC and all of those efforts as an intel analyst at first. Then went over to a different unit where I was deployed as a targeting officer, supporting the task force downrange, and it gave me a new purpose.
Yeah. If we could take a quick step back, when you found out that your son was not yours, obviously that's catastrophic and devastating as a 6-year-old thinking he's your son, and now you realize he's not. I can't even imagine, like, was he told that at that time?
No.
How did that unfold, and how do you deal with him? Do you still interact with him? Do you, how did that whole process kind of shake out?
Yeah.
Once you found out?
So once I found out, it was December 2014, and I got that test back. And
was that your idea?
Yeah.
Okay, because you started to think like maybe.
I'm starting to backtrack everything, and I'm like, okay, there's a clear pattern, there's a certain type of person, and so I questioned it, and I was like, I want to know the truth. And when I found out, I confronted her about it, and she denied it, of course. And then at the time, she was down in Alabama, and I'm up in Virginia living with them. And I told her immediately I wanted a divorce. And that was kind of the route we were going to go. I was going to try to make things work, with her and him to stay in his life, but she sabotaged that, her and her mother. And they started feeding him lies, and then basically told me I was never allowed to talk to him again.
Yeah.
And it was, it was a really hard thing for me to walk away from, but I just knew if I tried to stay in his life, it would not have worked out well for me.
Yeah.
They weren't in the right mind frame to allow that to be productive.
Yeah.
And knowing that, I did my best with him and raised him for the 6 years that I did have. So I think I created a good baseline for him, and hopefully, when he turns 18, if he wants to come and get the truth, I'm here. But
have you not heard from him since?
No.
So he's what, like 16 now? Or?
Probably, yeah.
Wow. Man, I'm sorry to hear that, man. That's fucking, I can't even imagine. I really can't imagine. That's tough.
This is actually the first time I'm really talking about it too. It's
really?
Crazy. Yeah. I didn't even.
Well, it's the couch, really.
It is.
Got a box of Kleenex, baby wipes over here, maybe just in case. Man, that's heavy. All right, so going back to, you kind of repurpose your life and get on the path, so to speak. As that profession progressed, and you build skills, whatever, at what point did you decide to start your own company?
During COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I guess, so what happened between when we left off, before we took a couple steps back, and when you started your own business? Did you just continue to build skill sets and experience in that sector?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was surrounded by the best of the best, and it pushed me hard, and I grew as someone, with an analytical mindset naturally. I think I was able to really grow that and evolve as a person, look at things differently. Coming from the ground, having that ground operator experience gave me a different perspective that other intel analysts and targeters just didn't have. Mm-hmm. Right? They're all school trained, riding desks, air conditioned environments their whole life, right? Yeah. Their whole career, they'd never seen that actual contact on the ground. So going in with that, I think I was able to draw on that experience, and just, I don't know, something about the Marine Corps and its NCO, NCO core, and how leadership is pushed down to such a low level that allowed me to thrive. And so, early on I was put into leadership positions. I was leading, a team of 12 varying disciplines of intel analysts. And, we're going after our nation's top targets in ISIS. And then, that opportunity and that exposure got me hungry again to go downrange, because this was all working from the rear.
Can you say who you were working for when you were doing it?
Yeah, so we were in a troop of the JIB, which is the JSOC Intelligence Brigade.
As you're still on active duty, or
no? This is as a contractor.
So that's as a what contracting company?
So the company that had that contract was a subcontractor to the prime. It was Preding was the name of that company. And in that troop, their assigned task was developing advanced analytics and targeting methodologies. So we looked at 2 ridge lines away type targets.
I gotcha.
And worked on advanced targeting methodologies to help the task forces downrange identify and find those targets, find, fix, finish, and just work that whole cycle.
Okay.
We're doing a lot of like big data type of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, from there, like I said, I got hungry again. I wanted to deploy. So I transitioned to JIDO, which is the now DITRA. But at the time, they had a special operations branch that was solely built to deploy targeting officers in support of the national tiers, or the tier 1 assets. And so I had that opportunity and deployed downrange to Iraq.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, in
sort of.
Yeah, loose tongue, right?
Yeah.
Obviously. Just about everything I did over there was classified, but for the most part.
So what did you do?
Yeah. So my job was to manage all of the intelligence operations in support of developing targets for strike or a hard hit for boots on the ground raids.
I know we've got to be careful and cautious about how we talk about it, but as you're overseas, is it kind of, if I'm painting kind of a visual picture, the opening scene of Black Hawk Down, the guy on the mountain bike?
No, yeah, unfortunately,
it's
I
not
didn't
quite
get
that
anything
cool.
that cool.
Yeah,
I mean, I felt like I was that cool, but no, it was jock operations.
Okay.
So we're in the jock.
Okay, but you're over there doing it.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
Embedded with them,
Yeah.
right?
But as a civilian.
Yes.
Yeah.
And JSOC's pretty unique in how it treats its contractors.
Yeah.
I mean, we're unit members.
So so now I'm curious, like for anybody listening with that kind of background that want, like, how do you even get into that? Obviously, you were kind of funneled because you were part of that group, but somebody who's not, is that even realistic to say, well, I would want to go do that? Like, how would they?
Yeah.
Have a recruiting department?
They do. Additionally, there's a lot of opportunities for military in service to do a joint like deployment, joint duty station, I guess, assignment. So there were a lot of individuals like that, you know, they would, get deployed downrange and they were filling different types of roles, ITC or actually all of our ITCs came from the JIB.
What is ITC?
ISR Tactical Controller.
Okay. A lot of the stuff that I ask, I know what it means, but
correct.
I get a lot of comments are like, dude, I have no idea what the fuck you guys are talking about.
I know. So, I start rolling and it's just like all acronyms.
Yeah. All right. So you did that for how long until you decided I'm going to start my own company?
So that role was 2 years, and I was just like back-to-back deployments. And at the time, I'm remarried. Obviously, I have my children now. We had just had our first daughter, and actually my first deployment with them was while she was pregnant, and then I got back and was there for the birth, and then she grew up and was like crawling when I left for the next deployment. And by the time I came home, or she hadn't even started crawling yet, actually. By the time I came home, she was walking, and it was crazy.
And telling you to fuck off.
Yeah, right. Already.
Right. Yeah.
But so from there, my wife was like, all right, these deployments got to slow down or stop. And I tried to work with them to try to stay there, but do something a little different, get some dwell time, and it wasn't going to happen. So I went over to the unit's cyber tier and just did that all in for 3 years.
And what does that consist of?
So my official title was Cyber Operations SME, subject matter expert, and essentially, the JSOC's cyber element, and doing cyber operations.
I mean, like to coin a term, like, I mean, is there any hacking type stuff involved? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all hacking, to a degree. and utilizing cyber intelligence from those types of things to enhance understanding for those fix finish operations.
Yeah. From your perspective of having spent 3 years heavy into that, I guess 2 questions. One is the training. Does it come from the government? Do they lean on, like you see some TV and movies where they're like recruiting these 16-year-old fucking whiz kids out of basements? Like, how are they teaching you how to do this stuff? Is the first question. I'll ask the second one, I guess, after that. But
so the military has a pipeline for the cyber operators that actually execute code, and that pipeline's pretty intensive, but it relies a lot on industry standards. So in the, I guess, cyber world, it's called ethical hacking.
Yeah.
And that whole genre and kind of like industry has its own standards and certifications, courses and certifications that you would go through. So the pipeline for that relies heavily on those. And then from there, these cyber operators are basically taught how to use the GOTS tool, so government off the shelf.
Okay.
So the government essentially goes to contract companies and says, we need this capability. They build it, and it's, the way I like to equate the analogy is that they build Ferraris and Lamborghinis, right? And then you go out and drive this on Sunday to 1 or 2 places, but everyone sees you driving it, and you're only as effective as, you can create a pathway of surprise. Where in reality, what we really need to be doing is taking COTS tools, so commercial off the shelf, and where, they don't cost the price of a Lamborghini. You could go out and buy, 300 Toyota Corollas, and then you can just take that Toyota Corolla and drive it straight into the side of the Walmart.
Yeah.
And do it from all sides, and someone's getting through, so
these products, they're viruses,
so when you get down into the ones and zeros, basically everything works off of standard protocols, right? So the computers know how to speak to each other using certain languages and certain protocols and approaches. And ultimately, hacking is just tricking the machine into thinking one way or another that it's performing the right operation, but you're just tricking it in a way.
So in your analogy with the Lamborghini and Ferrari is that if these viruses are so well done and so complex and so good that they actually draw so much attention, like everybody's like, holy fuck, this is a state operated, like everybody knows.
It's a signature.
Okay.
And
wow, that's fascinating.
And the problem with that is you don't drive your Lamborghini to go get groceries.
Yeah.
You take
not
it out.
With that attitude.
Yeah, right. When you're spending that kind of money, it's not your everyday driver.
Right.
And so unfortunately, the way that the U.S. military has approached cyber has been challenging.
Yeah.
I think we're getting better, but unfortunately, there's just so much control from such a high level in the government that there's just this fear of, this is an act of war.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not. Look at what our adversaries are doing.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked that and why I have the second question I have is kind of along the same vein, but is that, within the government, everything is so delayed, and that's an industry where it's so fast moving that I can see where that would be a challenge. And also when you have somebody, who's 78 years old that's making the decision that has truly no concept of what they're making a decision on, like that's a fucking dangerous combination.
Highly.
Which leads to my second question is that if you look at the globe, ethical hackers, state hackers, whatever, just hacking from a capability standpoint, where does the United States sit ranking-wise with everybody else, state-wise?
My personal opinion, capability, we're up there.
Yeah.
Our desire to use it and our the methodology in which we do use it, we can't even compete.
Just because we're not willing to.
So,
I mean, would you say when you say we're up there, we're as good as anybody?
Yes.
Okay. It seems like there's a component of you have to be able to be, offensively as good as anybody to be able to be defensively competent. Is that it?
Yeah. Our defense is not good.
Yeah.
We.
So that those don't really go hand in hand.
They do.
Way?
No. They absolutely do.
Okay.
But our ineptitude and our inability to push our offense leaves us a weak defense.
Okay. Do you see that changing? Does it matter who's in the White House?
It does not.
Really?
Because they don't make the laws.
So whose fault is it?
Congress.
How do you change that?
So I'm working with some folks to do that.
Yeah.
I won't name them, but there's some senators,
Yeah.
and representatives that are aware of some of this, and actually the Marine Corps is trying to push some of these things, and they're creating a cyber auxiliary force.
Yeah.
Which is co-opting those 16-year-old hackers, right?
Okay.
So we're getting there. Unfortunately, that's going to take time to build, and in order to do that, you also have to look at other things, like, for instance, drugs, right? Like, a lot of these kids that are into hacking
Are also on drugs.
they're using, recreationally or for performance enhancement.
Yeah.
So we have to look at that differently.
So you're going to need an Adderall waiver for for the fucking background check.
Yeah.
That's fucking nuts, man. If you're going kind of state-sponsored terrorist hacking capability, China or Russia, is one better than the other from your perspective?
They're different. So Russia's just much more open in what they do. They're definitely not trying to cover up their signature as much. They obfuscate through using non-military, paramilitary elements, or ATPs is what they call them. Advanced threat or advanced persistent threat, APT. Yeah. And so I think that they're a lot looser in what they do and how they approach it. They're just reckless, where China is a lot more focused and controlled and deliberate in what they do. Things like the OPM hack.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they're using it to think 10, 15 years down the road, who are they going to co-opt as sources, to further their goals.
And the OPM hack was what?
So the Office of Personnel Management. So basically, China hacked that back in 2012 or 13, and essentially got all the records of everyone who has a security clearance.
Yeah.
And everything associated to that, right? So, like, OPM does all their background investigations and then has all that data stored, right? So you can then go see, okay, well, this person was, what red flags happened in their investigation. Those are now vulnerabilities that China can exploit.
They can send the 23-year-old honeypot, like they did with the fucking congressman with Swalwell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a ton of that shit. Yeah. I guess so. Outside of Russia and China, is there another player that you don't hear about, or that you would say is worth worrying about, or on? Or
Iran, North Korea. One of the opposite to that, we have some allies out there that are incredible in that space. Ukraine, if we use it correctly, right? But if you look at the way that we're aligning to Ukraine right now, essentially the U.S. government is creating slush funds out of all the funding.
Yeah, it's
that's going over there.
ATM for them.
It is.
Yeah.
It's not effective. And I know from firsthand knowledge. I've been over to Kyiv and talked to them on the ground. I know what
in this position.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. As for my company.
Okay.
As a defense contractor, trying to build contract opportunities for my company.
Yeah.
And support the Ukrainian people, because as much of the politics that are involved at the highest echelons, it looks very much like an orchestrated war, but on the ground, it's a real war, right? Like there's people dying and there's civilians dying daily. It's crazy.
So, I mean, to delve into that for a hot second, it sounds like you're a supporter of our support for Ukraine.
Not in the fashion we're doing it.
Okay.
I think that ultimately we do need to support Ukraine to stand up against Russia, because it doesn't stop with Ukraine. And then ultimately we're NATO allies, so Article 5 gets pulled and we're engaged anyway.
If they go past Ukraine.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they have every ambition to do so. Putin wants to reinstate the Soviet Empire. It's his goal. So I am an advocate in it is our responsibility for our national security interests to be engaged in
just
that conflict.
in a much different way.
I think so.
Yeah. All right. So you start your own business after the culmination of the 3 years spent as a contractor. Talk us through that.
Yeah. So my time at JCOG, which is the Joint Cyber Operations Group, I get there in 2018. I had just started my undergraduate or completion of that. So I'm doing international relations and diplomacy. And so I get to start studying and taking a look at global geopolitics. I come out from these, regional conflicts that we've been hyper-focused on, especially JSOC, just in the grind, right? And I'm able to kind of like pull my head back and look at what all's going on. And I look at, the shifts in global order and global power, really start diving into our national security doctrine and approach and strategies. And so I'm reading the 2017 National Security Strategy, 2018 Defense Strategy, things of that nature, looking at PPD 20, which is a presidential policy directive guiding cyber operations. And so I'm looking at all these things from a different mindset. And I start to realize that, we're hyper-focused on these regional conflicts, not paying attention to what China and Russia are doing to essentially, repave what geopolitics and what their regional, hegemon activity looks like, and how they've actually been growing and expanding their global influence. And so I'm looking at that problem set and realizing that we're not doing enough to get after it. So I start kind of beating the drum on that internally at JCOG, and my squadron commander, amazing man, just highly intelligent and efficient at his job, and understanding that bigger picture and those dynamics. So I start working with him and talking to him about, what I think we should be doing, and working on some of those more low equity exploits, low equity opportunities for cost solutions, and enabling partners doing, soft enabled cyber operations, or partner enabled, I should say. And so we look at that as a concept, and I eventually get the blessing to go forward to Afghanistan as a contractor there, and embed within one of the 127 Echo programs to develop this kind of COTS-enabled over-the-horizon capability. Because at this time, it's 2019, we see the writing on the wall, Afghan's going to go away. But in the
127 Echo and COTS.
127 Echo is a congressional line of funding that allows for specialized operations that are sensitive in nature and a secretive type of program, but allow us the ability to enable our partner forces.
There's no room for fraud there. Jesus.
Yeah. Heavy cash, heavy influence.
Zero oversight.
Yeah, lots of But
bags of cash overseas, no accountability, auditing, or oversight. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
You know, there's definitely been a few occasions. I think you alluded to one earlier.
Right.
But you know, given the caliber of men that are doing this,
Yeah.
men and women, it typically does go well.
Yeah, and then COTS.
COTS is commercial off the shelf. So you know, we're looking at essentially what I was deployed to go do was take equipment that you can get on the open market, repurpose it, retool it with some firmware.
I got you.
And then basically hyper enable our partner force to go out and either conduct cyber activities or collection. And so ultimately, basically, I'm in my chew, like 19-hour days, teaching myself how to code and like repurpose these Raspberry Pis to go do this kind of stuff. And it was highly effective. I mean, we were changing the game until the lawyers got involved, and you know, then the whole argument of Title 10, Title 50 for U.S. law and military operations and how those are conducted, whether they're operational acts or intelligence operations. You know, the water gets muddy for that when you start talking cyber, and it's mostly just people trying to protect rice bowls. You know, U.S. Cyber Command being stood up as a combatant command, it's the same story. You know, like with MARSOC standing up within the Marine Corps, there's going to be a fight against that. People don't want to see their best go somewhere else, and fall under something different. You know, so within that, you know, the lawyers will ultimately squash what we did, but the capabilities that I developed were highly effective and used. And iterated upon, and so those are now actually, you know, tools in development or use, I should say, not even development anymore. Yeah. But you know, that feeling of just the machine, the bureaucracy crushing our ability to innovate and adapt fast enough to gain parity with China and Russia. Yeah. Just put a taste in my mouth. I was like, all right, you know, if I can't do this from within, I'm going to go forward and just start my own company to do it myself.
Yeah.
Man,
awesome.
And COVID gave me that ability to kind of like be at home enough that I was able to really start thinking about how I could put that into practice and make it a reality.
You know, it's amazing. COVID was a revealer in a lot of ways. In you know, on an individual level, the government, I mean, it really, I mean, it's kind of almost like money reveals who people are, you know, because, you know, some people were like, fuck, can't work, Netflix and fucking Instacart. And, you know, I guess I'll just sit here and wait. And other people are like, okay, well, this door is closed, but now I have this time to do what I want. You know, I mean, that book, Unfuck America, was a result of that. As well as doing a lot of online one-on-one training, you know, dog training calls with people. And it was like, okay, my hand is forced into these boxes. What can I do with these boxes, you know? And people either took advantage of a new opportunity and figured out a way to make something positive, or they're like, well, I guess I'm fucked. I'm out of a job and I'll just sit here. It's pretty fascinating, I think, into a look into kind of the human psyche of what something like that does and reveals with people. But
absolutely. I want to address something with that too, because from that has been a pretty significant impact, I think, on our society and our culture. Yeah. And those two paths ultimately create a polarization. Mm-hmm. And the people that go down that path of, well, this is my victimhood. Yeah, that's perfect. There's a mental health component that comes from that, you know? Yeah. And those people find themselves in situations that they don't feel they can pull themselves out of, and they let it just consume them. Yeah. And I think that our country is suffering from that now because of that.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, you know, when you, I guess, weave the TikTok algorithms, or we'll just say social media algorithms of kind of sensationalizing victimhood and rewarding it and making it like this thing that people now almost gravitate, not almost, I mean, they do gravitate towards, because it's like it's being emboldened, it's being highlighted, it's being rewarded, you know. And to me, it's like, and this is something that I talk to my kids about often, you know, it's like the comparison is the thief of joy. You know, it's like, stop worrying about what everybody else's fucking deal is. Like, well, why do they have this and why don't I get, you know, it's like, there's this other side of the coin of people who have a way shittier deal than you. Like, I don't give a fuck what position you're in. You'll always be able to find somebody with a better deal than you and somebody with a worse deal than you. You know, trying to compare that is fruitless. And again, it's the thief of joy, but also it's like, no matter what your circumstance, like you can string along the worst circumstances in the world that somebody's been through as a child, as an adult, as both, whatever. And you can spend your entire life dwelling on that. Or you can say, okay, all of these terrible fucking things happened and I went through, I have all these traumas, et cetera. What are you going to do about it? Like, at this point, that's what you have. You have two choices. You can do something with it, or you can sit and dwell on it. Like, it's really that fucking simple. And it's not to take away from, you know, what people have been through or any struggles, but everybody has them, you know, and you either fucking use them to your advantage or you let them destroy you. And like, to me, to continue to dwell on them, they're just continuing to hurt you. Like, why let them do that? Anyway, not to get off on a fucking tangent, but
no, I think that's very important, because you see that even in the veteran community.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the thing that makes us who we are, that adversity that shows a man or woman their true colors and what makes them, you know, just human. Yeah. And the drive to continue beyond that, and find your way. The obstacle is the way, right? Like, find your way through that into this new person that you can become. Even in the veteran community, where we're given that opportunity over and over, and we're faced with lots of challenging situations where it's life or death, and you don't have a choice but to push through. That is special. Even veterans don't take advantage of that, and they fall into this victimhood mentality. You know, and it is definitely something that is plaguing our society and our community.
Yeah, for sure. So you take advantage of COVID, you get your company set up, and then you full speed ahead. What was your first contract?
So the way that I set it up is I wanted to be able to put everything into it, my full attention. And so I raised enough investment capital to be able to give us 1 year runway. And that was to, you know, cover everything from, you know, all the expenses for overhead, just everything you can imagine.
Vegas trips, the whole thing.
Yeah. We did a Vegas trip. We went to SHOT Show, which was extremely beneficial.
No shit.
Oh yeah.
That's
for
nice.
The relationship building with different manufacturers and.
Well, that makes the
folks.
one of us.
Yeah.
I haven't been to a business successful SHOT Show yet, but yeah, it always turns into a fucking melee.
But you know, you need some of that sometimes.
Oh, for sure.
It builds those relationships.
Oh, no doubt.
But yeah, to your question, so I set it up so that we would have that 1 year runway, and that gave me the opportunity to be able to walk away from, you know, my role as a contractor in JSOC, and dive into this, you know, full force. The first contract that we ended up getting was a security contract for National Park Services. So we still have this. We're performing unarmed security at national monuments in New York City. Oh, so nice. It's a good contract. It creates enough stability for the company that, you know, operations can continue. Our first, and that's a subcontract award. So we're on a couple other, you know, IDIQs supporting SOF.
That's indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I'll just rattle acronyms all day long. And so we're supporting SOCOM for that, and then another one for MARFOR Cyber, supporting cyber vulnerability research. So those are kind of some steady state contracts. We want to prime contract delivering night vision goggles for U.S. Marshals. So I've been trying to get in place follow-on contracts in that realm. We answered some RFIs to the Pentagon early on in the Ukraine war that would have provided that opportunity, but I kind of alluded to the whole slush fund concept. I have firsthand knowledge and where some of that money went and didn't go.
Yeah.
We had been engaging with the Pentagon's Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sales for this contract, and was the reason that I decided to go to Kyiv in the first place. Because I needed to get the ground truth from them. We were being told one thing by the Pentagon about where night vision goggles fell in their priority list. So I went downrange to speak to the Ministry of Defense and their GUR, which is their special operations component underneath the Ministry of Defense and Intelligence Directorate. And, the ground truth that I got there was very different than what we were hearing. And so, in that time frame, I've been trying to get those two ends to meet up in the middle somewhere, to try and, get that contract further. But some of our other work is in the kind of intel space. So we've developed a software product that ultimately takes a lot of the things that I was doing as a targeter on the high side on, top secret channels and, highly classified technologies. Essentially, I have found ways to replicate that with unclassified information. Because the way that I see the true great power competition unfolding is through our partners and allies. Even if you just look at Ukraine right now, for instance, we're actively combating Russia through a proxy war.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the stuff going on in the background, we're not as effective as we should be because of the classification of the intelligence, and what can get downgraded and shared to the Ukrainians is just not going to be as effective as if that same information exists on a completely unclassified system that both sides are using. Yeah. So that's what I'm developing and trying to get out into the realm. We also have some pretty advanced technology that we're working in the drone space.
Cool.
Ukraine has definitely opened up that world. And you see
That's wild.
It's
some of the shit they're doing with drones is crazy.
Wild. Yeah. Especially when you look at the fact that the men in the mud on the ground, that's like back to World War I trench warfare, coupled with this highly advanced technology.
Yeah, that's a strange duality, no doubt.
For sure.
All right, so company things are going well. Big part of why you're here is an incident happens based on medication that you're misprescribed through the VA. Can you tell us about, the medication, like what led to you being prescribed that, and then ultimately what happened and what's going on now with this court problem? Yes, absolutely. So back in 2017, while I was pushing out on these deployments with JSOC, we're working highly complicated missions. I'm controlling multiple lines of ISR, incorporating signals intelligence, human intelligence, GeoInt, everything you can imagine, pulling all of that data together. I'm staring in front of a computer screen, 18-hour days, and the jock is just crushing me. And by this point, I'd just come back from that first deployment doing this. And in 2016, I came back. And then 2017, I found myself just not performing well. The effects of my time in the military and these deployments are starting to compound. I'm getting older. The symptoms of my PTS and TBI are really kicking in. I'm having trouble sleeping at night. I've got horrible night sweats, night terrors. A lot of, honestly, survivor's guilt. Just dealing with all the friends and brothers that I lost over there, and having come out of the shadows of some of that. I went to the VA. That's what we're told to do. Like,
go get help. And, so I went to them and told them like, hey, these are my symptoms. I had a coworker that, was a veteran, also special ops guy. He came from the Green Berets, and, he told me like, hey, I went to the VA and they gave me this. It was, I think they gave him Provigil was the medication. And it really helped him, so I went to my, community-based outpatient clinic, which was down in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and engaged with my primary care doctor, explained what was going on. I told him that, I have these issues going on. I can't focus at work. I'm falling asleep. I'm having trouble staying awake, staying alert, staying focused on task. And my sleep is just horrendous, so there's like, I'm in this cycle that I can't get out of. And I have this friend that is on this medication and it seems to be helping him. Is there an opportunity for me? And they said, well, there's this other version of that called Nuvigil. We could put you on that. And then, so I did it and got it prescribed. And this was like fall of 2017. I'm getting ready for another deployment to go back out the door. And they gave me, like a 30-day prescription of this. It's a highly controlled substance, so there's certain protocols they got to follow. And so I go to request a 120-day supply because I'm going to be deployed for 4 months. And, the VA says they can't do that without like a sleep study. But I'm pumping out in 2 days, and they want me to come sleep overnight for 2 days. And I just can't do it. I got to get doctor appointments, like all these things, and get cleared hot to go to deploy. And this is my livelihood, this is how I make my money, support my family. So, I told them like, I cannot make this sleep study. Is there something else that we could do? And I'm, this is all documented through VA's secure messaging platform. So the doctor calls me and she's like, hey, we have a, possible solution here. We could transfer the medication to a civilian provider because you have, civilian insurance through your job. And ultimately we'll just transfer the medication. We'll maintain oversight, and it's still in your records. We know that you're taking it and watching for other, contraindications, other medications, things like that. Right. And so I'd find a civilian doctor that'll give me that 120-day supply so I can go deploy with it. And that's what we did. The VA kept me on it. Looking back in retrospect, we just found this new study from the FDA that you should not be on this for over 12 weeks at a time. I was on it for 4.5 years. Oh, and, wow. The longest known study only lasted 2 years, and they ended it because everyone started getting psychosis and hallucinations. Wow. And it's a known side effect of this drug, but I was never informed of these things,
Did it do what it was supposed to do work-wise?
It did. It's considered a stimulant. So the idea is you take it in the morning, it regulates your ups so that your body's like on point when you need to be. And then it kind of tailors off and your body's natural circadian rhythm takes over and you go to sleep. And it worked. It was working for me. I was able to function at work again. I went forward on that deployment and absolutely crushed it. It's kind of, I think the movie Limitless is based on this drug.
Oh, okay.
So that gives you an idea of like the power of it.
Did they entertain, trying to think of the like Adderall or Vyvanse or any of that kind of stuff instead, or?
It just, I don't know. It didn't come up. Because I had
that stuff is probably any better, I think, for that amount of time. I don't know. I know a lot of people are on that shit, but
right. And for the most part, I thought I was being responsible with it. Even with the length of time I was taking it, I was only taking it when I was working. Yeah. So like I had periods of time where I just didn't take it at all. Multiple days in a row, weeks at a time.
Was it hard on you to go on and off it? Like, does your body get used to it? It doesn't have withdrawals or anything?
Yeah, no withdrawals. So in my mind, I was being responsible, doing the right thing. I'd gone through all the procedures to be on this, and it was helping. It was addressing some of the problems. Now, when I get to the actual misprescription of it, there's some nuance because when I got out in 2014 and went to the VA for my disability and compensation claims, as I was instructed to do when I got out, they rated me ultimately at 90% disability, and I had like 70% for PTSD. And at the time, I found this out later doing some research. The VA had this huge scandal where docs were misdiagnosing TBI as PTSD on purpose because their justification was that PTSD goes away and we can bring these ratings down and not have to pay out veterans, for the disability claims. And so despite having multiple documented TBIs in my medical records and that I claimed it, they gave me 0% on that. And so when my primary care doctor went to go prescribe that, I had 0% for TBI, so there's no contraindication, where this is not an ideal drug for someone with traumatic brain injury.
I gotcha.
And so, this all comes out after the fact because of this incident that occurred. So leading up to that incident, it happened February 15th, 2022. And, I started my company in March of 2021. So I had that 1 year runway, right? And we're coming up on February. It's like towards the tail end of January. And I know that, we only got about a month and a half left. I've got employees that are on overhead with me helping to try to build the business. But we just don't have the revenue, the cash flow to be able to support them without that investment funding, right? So like the contracts that we have only are going to cover so much overhead.
Yeah.
And so I know that, shit's about to go down and I'm going to have to make some really hard decisions. So, I just did what I do best and like went to work and, and that's that whole path, right? Like adversity and overcome it or become a victim and succumb to it. Right. Like, so, and I chose that other path. I'm going to find a way out, and so all I could do is just work harder. And the thing that I sacrificed was my sleep. I just went back to what I knew. And, I was working crazy hours and we were starting to see some success. I locked in a couple of contracts. We're licensed for private investigative services. So I was, doing this private investigative work for a couple of commercial companies. And, it was intensive, right? Like the amount of work that I had to put into that was crazy. And so I'm sleeping like 2 or 3 hours a night, just doing everything I can to just find new opportunities. And so we found an opportunity with MARSOC where ultimately this software tool that I've developed now at the time was under early development, and this contract vehicle that we found with another prime that I had originally worked for, so I had a good relationship with them. I leveraged that. They had an R&D contract, which they were the sole source award to, and research and development for cyber. And so basically we would be able to leverage that vehicle to bring MARSOC in as the customer and develop this tool in tandem with their requirements, right? And so in real time, we're developing it and getting feedback, user feedback for what they need on the back end. And so the 2 weeks leading up to this event, I'm just like crushing it, going to all these different meetings, pulling other entities into the fold on this, because you can't do anything alone. You got to find the experts that are really good at their aspect of it and bring them into it, right, as a team. And so I'm building the team, getting everything ready, and I secure this meeting with MARSOC to go pitch them and get their final buy-in so that we can get this contract off the ground and running. And this is going to fix everything, So the meeting's for February 15th at 10:30 in the morning. Obviously, I've been working my ass off, so my family's suffering from this. I'm not spending any time with them. So the day before is Valentine's Day, and I took the whole day off. I wanted to be with my wife. instead of like going down the night before and being there. So I spend the day with her, and, because I took that day off, I fell behind on something. I had to get that PI work completed, the report collated and finalized to get out the door the next morning. It was due the 15th. And so I stayed up till about midnight working on that, and just finally had to crash. I went to sleep for about an hour, and I woke up, finished the report, and then got on the road. And, I was under extreme stress, a lack of sleep, and then this drug, and, high amounts of caffeine just to, stay alive and make the drive down there.
So you were still on the Nuvigil at this point?
Yes. And something happened along the way down there. It just, the medication took over, and all the psychosis and the hallucinations happened. I completely blacked out. I don't even remember like getting to my friend's house, which the kind of goal was to get to a friend's house, drop my vehicle off right on base with him, because I didn't have access to get on the compound anymore. And at some point driving into that area, something about just being back in that, my old stomping grounds, which I hadn't been down.
Fayetteville or what?
No, Jacksonville.
Jacksonville.
Yep. So I'm driving over to Stone Bay, where MARSOC has its headquarters. I hadn't been down there in years, so perhaps something of that nature brought the flashbacks or something. I don't know, but I just completely blacked out. And I get to his house, and this is all based on their testimony, some footage from his Ring camera, phone calls, text messages, and some CCTV footage. But ultimately, we were able to kind of piece things together. And he knew something was wrong right away, because I wasn't acting normal. And he called another friend of mine who came off base, and they had me both at the house, and were just trying to get me to stay there. They told me that, we can't take you on base like this. There's something going on. And, they're just trying to keep me contained. And at some point I decided to leave, got in my vehicle, and started driving home. I must have known something wasn't right. And, you go into fight or flight, right? So, at some point I pull over at a location along the route home, right outside of Jacksonville, and, got out of my car. Was pretty angry, like slammed my phone on the ground and was smashing it. Apparently I'd been talking to my wife and thought she was the devil, and I was here to purge evil from the world. And I got my pistol out of my car and just started wildly shooting it into the air, and put a couple rounds into traffic. Hit two vehicles passing by. Fortunately, no one was injured. Just kind of hit the exterior of the vehicles. 2 rounds did. And I shot up my own car. Ended up putting a round right through the center console and hit the, we know all this from after the fact. The vehicle got totaled, but at the time it was still running, and I got back in it and drove further until it just kind of rolled to a dead stop somewhere outside of town. Eventually my buddies got me on the phone and got me to share my GPS location, and they came and picked me up, brought me back to that house. But when they got to that site, and these, raiders, right? So like, they know their stuff. They know what to look for and everything. It was a pretty obvious site. The vehicle had been destroyed. There's smoke all over the inside of it. The heater core had exploded and thrown antifreeze or whatever the heater fluid is everywhere, and melted down the computer essentially. But so they knew something had happened. My pistol was slide locked to the rear. So my buddy knew something was wrong. But they saw that as the crime scene. Or, it wasn't necessarily a crime in their minds because I'd shot my own vehicle. No one was injured. There were no police there. So, their thoughts were like, all right, we got to get you to safety, get you to a mental health hospital. By that point, my wife was already coming down from Virginia. And we know, like, through discovery where the detectives had released all this information, text messages and everything, she already knew right then there was a medical or was a reaction from the medication. And, and that's in text messages, right? Like, we have that as evidence. The state has that as evidence. The testimonies from these raiders, like, it's all there. You just got to put all those pieces together and look at it as what happened is the medication caused this incident. It was not a criminal action. I didn't intend to do that. I was not physically or consciously aware of what was going on. But ultimately, we started to drive back up to Virginia, left the vehicle at a shop there, got it towed and whatnot. And I'm still not, like, there. At some point along the way back up to Virginia, Onslow County Sheriff, which is the county where this happened, detective calls and starts asking questions, and I'm talking to him. And I really don't remember much of this conversation. I know that I was speaking to law enforcement, but I don't remember the conversation. I only have the transcripts. Ultimately, he basically said, like, hey, we need to talk to you. And I was like, all right, well, you're talking to me. What can I help you with? And they're like, well, we have some video footage. You look pretty angry, and we just need to make sure you're okay. And I told them that I was okay. I'm with my wife in Virginia and, headed home. They said, well, we need to see you. And I said, well, I can FaceTime you, whatever you need, I'm here, but I'm in Virginia now. They said, well, no, we need to see you in person. We need to be able to close our case out. And I said, okay, do I need a lawyer? Is there something wrong? And they said, well, as a U.S. citizen, anytime you're dealing with law enforcement, you're entitled to a lawyer. But there's no charges. You have nothing to worry about. We just need to see you in person and verify that this is you and be able to close our case out. And I said, okay, well, if that's the case, can I come back down there, on Monday? And they said, yeah, that'd be fine. And so I have all these transcripts, and that was not the case. As soon as we got off the call, that detective filed a warrant for my arrest in Virginia as a felon fugitive from justice. And, so I get back to Virginia, and by this point, it's like the day after, and it's evening, and I'm starting to kind of like be myself again.
Had you stopped taking the medication?
Oh yeah.
Do you normally take it once a day?
Once a day in the mornings.
A couple questions before we get further into the story. What was the last point that you remember driving down there? Driving
into Jacksonville,
and then it's black, and then there wasn't like and then I remember from here on it was more of a gradual.
It was gradual, like just feeling like, have you ever fainted?
I haven't.
Okay. Like when you come back from that, it's like almost, have you ever been like frag or like a concussion grenade?
Yeah, I've been knocked out.
Yeah. So it's like that. When you come back to, you're like trying to figure out what's going on and get your bearings.
Yeah.
It was a lot of that, but in and out.
Is there a moment that's legit the first moment that you can for sure remember?
Yes.
Which was what?
Getting arrested.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Okay. So even when you're talking to him, you're going back, it's still foggy and you don't really remember much of it?
No.
So at what point were you arrested?
So that night,
okay.
It was dark. So, this was February. So it had to have been at least after 6 p.m. They basically did a call out. They had their full SWAT team, dogs, breachers, armored vehicles,
wow,
everything you can imagine. But
your kids are in the house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my in-laws, because, they came in to watch the kids while my wife came down to get me. And, you know, fortunately, our sheriff's department in my hometown are very prudent and tactically, you know, efficient and just intelligent people. And they gave me the opportunity to come out, and of course I'm going to do that. You know, I'm not trying to put up a fight. But I still didn't know what was going on. I, at this point, thought I had only shot my car. You know, and so I go outside, and my wife had grabbed the phone, you know, right before it got off with them, and she's like, "Hey, we have small children. I don't want any lights. You know, like this can be done professionally because I don't need my children knowing what's going on." And you know, thank God she had that kind of awareness to make that call. But you know, I went outside, and it was very surreal. You know, they just grabbed me, walked me through my backyard to the alley, where they had like another 10 vehicles and a whole complement waiting to breach the back door. And, you know, they put me in cuffs and drove me to the station and booked me.
They charge you at that point?
No. All I knew is that I was being charged as a felon fugitive from justice from North Carolina under extradition laws. And so the idea was, you know, North Carolina was going to come up, extradite me back to their state to give me charges. However, they left me in jail for 2.5 weeks while they tried to find a driver, one person, just come up and get me. You know, and their justification was that this is 2022. Their justification was that COVID was a reason that they could draw it out as long as they wanted. And they took it all the way up until the day before. Like if they hadn't come and picked me up that next day, I would have been released. So it's, you know, there's definitely
gaming.
There's some gamemanship going on, you know. And so I get down to North Carolina, and I'm released within an hour on bail.
What was your charge in North Carolina?
So when I get to North Carolina, I find out that I'm being charged with 2 felonies and 2 misdemeanors. So the felonies are something along the lines of like criminal intent, or criminal conduct and discharging a firearm into occupied vehicle, some of that nature, or felony conduct, something like that. So 2 charges of that, and then a misdemeanor for violation of a city ordinance, discharging a firearm. And I guess one of the rounds hit the side of a building, and so there's property damage in excess of $200. You know, and so at this point I get released. I have my lawyer, who my wife is already, you know, she's amazing. She's an incredible person. She basically made it her job to figure out what was going on and fight like hell for me. And so she had secured a really great lawyer down in North Carolina who's a former Marine. So he gets it, you know, and in fact, he had worked as a prosecutor in this county, and so he knows that game. And basically he shows me the footage, the CCTV footage of it happening.
Where was the footage from? Like a restaurant or something?
Yeah, adjacent building, just looking down into that parking lot. And that was just earth-shattering for me to see myself acting in a way that I couldn't even remember. But much less, like in my conscious state of mind, I would never act like that. You know, like as a trained operator, we know how to handle firearms, and I was not doing that. I was one-handed, you know, whipping this thing around in the air. It just looks like someone having a mental health crisis, period. And, you know, and then my lawyer tells me that the prosecution wants to charge me with these felonies, and I'm facing 35 years.
Holy shit.
Yeah. You know, and so since that March of 2022, when I got out, I've been fighting this, you know, and at first, for the first year, we were quiet about it because, one, I was super ashamed and just embarrassed that this had happened. You know, like I go from being this super high performing individual, as an operator, intelligence contractor for JSOC, and then running my own defense contracting company, to someone who's being looked at as a criminal and treated worse than they treat murderers. Like there's murderers getting out on almost nothing, and so for the longest time, I just didn't know how to really deal with it. And I put everything into the hands of my lawyer who was fighting this. And we had the impression that the district attorney and the prosecutor would be willing to work with us to figure out how to either reach a plea that wouldn't destroy my life and mark me a felon and make it impossible for me to continue earning for my family, with my security clearance and all these things. So that was our goal. And the district attorney strung us along for over a year. And then, and they were playing some games. And then ultimately it came down to, no, you're going to trial. You're going to face a jury trial, 35 years hanging over your head now. And at that point, I knew that I had to do everything in my power to fight that. And so I had to go public, with my story, and thank God I did. It is the best thing that has happened to me. It's allowed me to grow as an individual and find true healing. I paint this picture of like I was in this like victimhood state, but I wasn't. Like the first place I went when I got out of jail was to the VA hospital, back up in Virginia where I live. And actually it wasn't. I learned my lesson with the clinic I had been going to in Fredericksburg, and I found a clinic out in Martinsburg, West Virginia. They run something called the Hope Center, which is actually one of the best PTSD facilities through the VA for veterans of the OIF, OEF era. And so I've been under, the care of a psychologist at this clinic, since then. And in addition to that, I've undergone some pretty intense and rigorous treatment, not only for my, PTS, but for my TBIs. And, I chose to not be a victim.
Yeah. Well, that's damn good to hear. It's a harrowing story, to say the least. That's fucking wild. Was there a point throughout this entire process where there was any involvement from the VA or an accountability piece where they said, hey, in them contacting the district attorney, or has there been any correspondence from them saying, hey, we fucked this up and here's documentation on this? Has any of that happened?
In a manner, there's no complete ownership of we caused this. I had to file a lawsuit against the VA, obviously. Well, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
But the psychiatrists and psychologists that I'm engaged with at this Hope Center, they have written letters down for the DA, for the prosecutor to look at, for the state of North Carolina to look at, that outlines exactly the cause of it.
Basically saying, in their words or your words, whatever, that he had a TBI, we didn't diagnose it. He was diagnosed with PTS, so we prescribed this medication that's contraindicated with TBIs, which caused this, and that's why that happened. Is it that? They
haven't owned up to that part of it yet, but they have said that the medication that he was prescribed caused this.
Yeah.
And it was categorized as a brief psychotic episode, which is in the DSM, which is the manual that governs mental health and the various aspects of that. So this is a thing. It's a real thing that happens. And the pharmaceutical company has hallucinations and psychosis as one of the major side effects of this.
Man. Not to violate any HIPAA laws, but did the psychiatrists and psychologists that you've been seeing since then, have they put you on any medication?
So my psychiatrist is amazing. She's very understanding of my desire to not be on pharmaceutical medications as a like primary kind of pathway.
Yeah.
And so
Weed and mushrooms then?
no, it's just I want to avoid any potential for another episode. Yeah, I got PTS from that.
Yeah.
No, it's so I am prescribed something called Seroquel, which is an antipsychotic. However, I don't take it. I've taken it a couple of times, right? Where it's like, I've noticed, I know there was a pattern, right? Where it's a lack of sleep, extreme stress, and then just those underlying conditions of the PTS and TBI, right? So that culmination of things with the medication is what caused the difference between taking it and being okay to psychotic.
I got you.
And so, when those factors of lack of sleep and extreme stress build up, then I have that Seroquel to aid me and keep me level. And so I had for instance, when I was in Kyiv, I took a pretty, calculated risk in going there in an active combat zone. At the time, there had not been any, active engagements into Kyiv beyond just that initial push. And so I felt pretty safe there until I wasn't. And I was there the day, October 10th, when Putin sent cruise missiles into the city.
Oh, wow. So you were there after this happened?
I was there when it happened.
I mean, after the incident happened.
Oh, correct. Yeah. Building my company, right? And one of those missiles landed right across the street from us. Wow. And so, that put me back in a kind of that PTS, like fight or flight, state. And coming back from Kyiv after that, it was that's a whole nother story, right? But coming back from that, I was, kind of noticed some of those symptoms happen. My sleep was getting disrupted again. And so that was an occasion that I took that Seroquel and I had it, right? And I have another prescription, which is Valium, which is essentially a complement to that Seroquel to like control my sleep, so it'll knock me out. And so there's been occasions where, just my mind gets racing, and I just get locked into an idea or, a project or a passion, right? And I'm just trying to crush through it, in a sprint kind of mentality. And my wife keeps me in check though, she's like, hey, you're pushing the envelope too much. Take it tonight. Yeah. So.
Man, that's a wild ride. So now what? When are you going? Like, there's been no movement in terms of making accommodations for any of that. They're saying, no, you're going to trial and this is what's happening.
Yes. So that began to unfold this February. Essentially, their backlog of cases got to a point where they had to make a decision with mine, and they chose to take the path of taking it to trial. And they set a date of June 5th. So I knew leading up to this that I was going to go down and face trial. And then the week of trial, one of our expert witnesses was hospitalized. And so we had to file a continuation requesting that we push the date back, and be given that right to a fair trial, essentially.
Well, can I ask what happened?
She's older, so she had some medical complications that just put her in the hospital. So she's a private psychologist.
Oh, okay. From your perspective, and I guess your lawyer's perspective, how prepared do you guys feel? Are you worried? I mean, I'm sure you're nervous, but I mean, how do you think it's going to go, and how do you guys feel?
I feel great. So when we filed for that continuation, the prosecutor chose the date of September 11th for my trial.
On purpose?
On purpose.
Oh.
And it's been a blessing in disguise, because how is that going to look to a jury? You know, the state of North Carolina is prosecuting a GWOT veteran that has injuries from the global war on terrorism that he joined because of 9/11, and had an incident occur because of those injuries, and is now facing felony prosecution on 9/11.
Yeah.
So it is in our favor. They've been playing additional games since then, because they realized that they made a mistake in filing for that date. And they're trying to play additional games now. And we had just filed another motion yesterday to force their hand to have the trial on this date, because my security clearance is in limbo. I had to self-report after this, you know, and that opened up an investigation that can't be closed until these charges are finalized.
Yeah.
And
or dropped or
correct. Yeah. You know, and we tried everything. There's a veterans treatment court that is state funded that this is perfect to be transferred to. We have a letter from that veterans treatment court stating that my case qualifies to be transferred there, and that they will handle it accordingly.
Is it the district attorney's call as to whether or not that happens?
Yes,
100%.
100%.
Does he just have a hard on for you, or what?
I mean, I have no clue. He's a veteran himself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of things that I could speculate, but ultimately I am going to face this trial. We've had pressure come from pretty prominent individuals, you know, in our Congress, state governments involved, you know, to try and push to get it to Veterans Treatment Court, you know, because what kind of a message are we sending? And it's bigger than just me. This is indicative of how veterans are being treated across the board. And it's incredible, the stories I've heard since I went public, from other people facing similar and worse situations. And so, you know, I've just kind of come to terms that I will face that trial on 9/11. They have no witnesses. The victims have already filed affidavits. They want no charges pressed.
The cars that were hit?
Yes.
Yeah.
The individuals that were in those cars. There's, you know, we have four different medical opinions that were individually crafted, and they all came to the same conclusion that it was a brief psychotic episode brought on by this medication. I have genetic testing that proves I'm not actually a candidate for this medication because I don't metabolize it correctly. We have the FDA studies. We have all of the treatment that I've undergone since then without the court trying to tell me that I need to go do this. I know I do, and I did, and I've healed from that. And I continue to work on myself, you know, daily. But, you know, so we have all of this going forward. And I know that at the end of the day, all I got to get is one person on the jury to understand what happened and that these are facts, and it'll go to a mistrial. Yeah. One of 12 has to just not want to convict me as a felon, and it'll go to a mistrial. And then at that point, the state will ultimately probably just send it to the Veterans Treatment Court, or all 12 jurors see the facts, see the case, and all the charges are just dropped. I'm found not guilty.
Yeah.
Which is my hope, is that it goes that direction. I can just be done with this and move on.
And if that happens, then everything back to normal and like doesn't fuck with your security clearance.
Right. I mean, I will have to go through all the hard work of expunging everything and just getting it all cleared and finalized.
Yeah.
But that is the quickest route.
Yeah, I got you. Man, what can we do?
So there is one final hope. The governor of North Carolina, Governor Roy Cooper, does have the power to expunge the charges beforehand.
Oh, okay.
So I've written a letter to the governor already, and I made that letter public. So United American Patriots is a nonprofit organization that's been supporting me and helping me and my family through all this. And UAP.org is their website. you can go find my letter to the governor on there. And there's also a call to action for others to intercede, and advocate for me to the governor.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty seamless process. It's all electronic. You can engage that way. And I would just, ask anyone listening that, has, just a soft spot in their heart and understands veterans and, maybe what we're going through. Please reach out, do your best, because this is not how things should go.
Yeah.
We need to set the correct precedent, because I think that if we do our best to strengthen the veteran community, heal the veteran community, that is a pathway to restoring America to its roots and its values.
Yeah.
And we got to take that.
Yeah, absolutely. What were the names of those two links?
UAP.org.
And what was the other one?
So that on there will be the letter to the governor and the link for how to submit your letter to the governor. And
we'll put that on our description of the episode. And what we'll do, we'll have this come out next Sunday, so just a few days before the trial actually goes. So it'll get out before then. But man, what a wild fucking story. Now that you've been through all that, obviously the trial is still coming up, but do you have a takeaway from all of this?
Oh yeah, for sure. My biggest thing that I've realized from all this is that PTSD and TBI, those invisible injuries, are very real. And, I was just reading this study that Vets put out. So Vets is Marcus Capone's organization. They were looking at the evolution of PTS and how that's been handled, diagnosed, and addressed over the years and through World War I, World War II, Vietnam, all the way up. And the numbers continue to grow as the conflicts move through time. So more and more of the combat veterans that are experiencing, heavy combat and even sometimes just, non combat arms MOSs, you're engaged. There is no front line, right? Everything is the front line. There's no flat, and so there are just exponential numbers that we're not even really seeing. We've just seen the tip of the iceberg. So we're not seeing what's below yet. And so my takeaway from that, I started a nonprofit to address this because, I see it as the sleeping giant that is a problem if we don't address it correctly. And there are so many opportunities to heal without having to face the things that I have, and stories like mine.
Yeah.
So I would just say anyone that is out there hurting and sees, any potential for being in that space, get help. Go talk to your brothers, talk to people that have been through it and are finding their pathways through it and emulate that. Yeah.
Well, I couldn't said it better myself. And, man, I'm sorry to hear that you've gone through all this, man. It sounds like just a whirlwind of shit, that you've had to put up with, man. I'll certainly be following it. Again, I'll go on there and support you, and I hope that everybody listening does, because man, what a shit sandwich. Well, I wish you nothing but the best. I can't thank you enough for coming. I know it was kind of a short timeline to get you here and get it out before the trial, but man, I'll be pulling for you, and I hope if there's anything I can do other than what we've already talked about, please let me know, and I hope everything goes well, man.
Absolutely.
In keeping in tradition with all guests, we do have some parting gifts for you here. Also, has anybody ever told you kind of look like Rob McElhenney?
No.
Do you know who that is?
No.
From Always Sunny in Philadelphia. There's a resemblance.
Which one is he?
The dark-haired guy.
Charlie?
No, it's the short one. The more jacked.
Okay. Yeah.
Bigger guy, but there's glimpses of it, for sure. But anyway, not a doppelganger, but there's a resemblance. Anyway, this is from Champion Choice Silver and John Johnston out in California.
That is incredible.
Yeah, so maybe wear that to the trial for a good luck charm. Who knows? But
you know what? I'm going to do that.
That would be
especially because it's got my name in there too.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Fucking A.
I'm doing it.
Rock and roll.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, thanks to them. I mean, they make that happen. That's John and Champion Choice. So thanks to those guys. I appreciate your continued support of all the guests. So we wouldn't be able to do it without them. So, and in that same vein, thank you to the listener for, we wouldn't be able to bring you amazing stories like this if it wasn't for your unwavering support week after week. So thank you to you guys for tuning in. And again, appreciate you coming. Is there anything else you want to throw in?
Nothing I can think of. Thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, this is Mic Drop.